Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today as we take a deep dive into our topic of technology, artificial intelligence, and data in healthcare. What do I need to know? Today's conference is put together with you, the community members, in mind. We are hopeful to be able to answer questions and engage with each and every one of you regarding the information on technology, healthcare, data, and the day-to-day practicality of this, technology, artificial intelligence, and how the world around us is evolving as we come to know more about the concept around artificial intelligence. Thank you so much for joining us today, either in person or online. And I am sure that by the end of today's conference, you will have more information regarding artificial intelligence, the role of data, and technology in healthcare, and be more empowered when it comes to informed decision making. Thank you to all our sponsors. Thank you to the funding agencies. Thank you to the faculty, to the staff. Thank you to our speakers and our panelists. Today's program would not have been successful without the support from each and every one of you, as well as to the leaders of Texas Southern University. Most importantly, to each of you, the community members that have joined us today, thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to stay engaged and connected with us on our social media platforms at CECTX Southern U. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a wonderful session today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cecilia Torres. I'm an epidemiologist here at Texas Southern University, and I would like to welcome everybody to our Technology, Artificial Intelligence, and Data in Healthcare. What do I need to know? And so I would like to introduce our welcome and agenda review guest, Dr. Ivy Poon, who is a professor of pharmacy practice and in the College of Pharmacy Health Science at Texas Southern. She's received her Doctor of Pharmacy from the University of Houston, Master of Science at the Palliative Care in the University of Maryland at Baltimore. She's a licensed pharmacist and preceptor in the state of Texas and has served as a clinical pharmacy specialist and preceptor for the pharmacy students at the Geriatrics Clinic in the Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center in Houston for more than 20 years. Dr. Poon has also served as a mentor for many junior faculty in research and professional growth. Her research interests are geriatric pharmacotherapy, palliative care, and pain management. Dr. Ivy Poon.
All right. Thank you so much, Cecilia. Good morning. How are you? Great. I love the energy that I saw this morning. People are greeting each other, making new friends. This is wonderful. So on behalf of CBMHR, which is the NIH-funded center and at Texas Southern University Community Engagement Corps, I want to welcome everyone, community members, faculty, sponsor, guest speaker. Thank you so much for coming. And this is such a timely topic, and also a topic that is important to many of us. I grew up in an era where there were no cell phone and computer at my home. I had my first computer when I was in college, and my first cell phone when I was in college too. So I felt like every day as I function as a pharmacist, I'm learning new stuff. Oh, we can do this now. And then every day as a patient and as I take care of my family's health, I'm learning as well. Now I can message my doctors now. So this is such a timely topic that everyone can learn, I think. So I'm just going to briefly go through the agenda for today. And we are going to mainly stay in this room. Around 11:40, we'll have a breakout session where we will go to smaller rooms. So to go to see, to also to view and also to explore the topics of your interest. So we have restroom facility on this floor and also upstairs. So if anytime it's just outside the door, if you would like to need to go to the restroom. We also have a pack full of multiple panel discussions, so just stay with us and stay engaged. Anytime when you have any questions, we would like, I'm sorry, I'm going to skip to this slide. We would like for you to write down the questions in the notepad of your folder. You should have given like a pen and also a notepad in your folder. At some different points of time, we will ask you to, if you have any questions and have questions and answer moments where you can come to the mic and ask your questions. If you are joining online, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put your question in the Q&A box. Then we will read the questions to the audience and answer your question accordingly. If you are CHW, make sure that you are filling out your CHW evaluation form so that you can get your 2 credit hours of CHW credits for free. And so we also want to thank you for all the sponsors who come, sponsor for this event, and also our vendors, including the Houston Methodist, Per Scholar, the Texas Southern University CPRIT, Rodney Ellis, Commissioner Precinct 1, CBMHR, TSU Prostate Cancer Screening and Prevention Center, African American Male Wellness Agency, Baylor College of Medicine, MHRICH, GCC, Gulf Coast Consortia, and also Duncan Comprehensive Cancer Center. We thank you so much, and we cannot do this today without your help. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to introduce Bishop Alatry, and he's going to come up and open us with a moment of prayer. Bishop Alatry is a native of Dallas, Texas. He obtained a bachelor's degree from the University of Texas, Arlington in 1973, and a doctoral jurisprudence degree from South Texas College of Law in Houston, Texas in 1979. Bishop O accepted the call to the gospel ministry in 1982. In 1985, he was ordained at Antioch Missionary Baptist Church. He is the founding pastor of First Metropolitan Church in 1986. Bishop O provided leadership in the purchase of 25.2 acres of land along Beltway 8 in Northwest Houston. He's the trustee of the Cy-Fair ISD. Bishop O has served in the leadership position for Union Baptist Association, the Baptist General Convention of Texas, and the African American Pastors Fellowship. He leads the Iron Sharpens Iron Pastor Fellowship. So please help us with the prayer. Thank you.
Thank you. I am just so happy to stand in for my good friend, Pastor Jamal Johnson, and to be here with you today. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for this university. We thank you for the medical sponsors. We thank you for what is going to take place today. This intersection between AI, technology, and health. God, we know that you want to deliver health to depressed communities, and we ask that every moment of learning that takes place here will be for the delivery of health to those who need it most. Sharpen our skills and let us be able to walk in new knowledge to serve people. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you. So next, we will listen to the open remarks of our president at Texas Southern University. I'm going to read this to introduce our president. Then we'll listen to a video recording. He couldn't be here today, but he would love to greet everybody and welcome everybody. So he pre-record his greetings, which we'll hear in a moment. So President Crawford is our new president, and the Texas Southern University Board of Regents unanimously approved James W. Crawford as the university's 14th president. He began his appointment on June 1st, 2024, succeeding interim president Dr. Mary Evans-Zayas. He has served students as both a university president and trustee, and has served in global leadership role under 6 U.S. presidents in peacetime and wartime. President Crawford holds a Juris Doctorate from the University of North Carolina, a Master of Law degree in Ocean and Coastal Law from the University of Miami, and a Master of Art in National Security and Strategic Study from the Naval War College, and a bachelor degree from Belmont Abbey College. So let's go ahead and listen to President Crawford. Okay, click one more time. Click one more time. Oh, okay. Yes.
Hello, I'm James Crawford, and I'm proud to be the president of Texas Southern University. I apologize for not being able to be present with you today, but I'd like to offer my virtual welcome to the Technology, Artificial Intelligence, and Data in Healthcare Conference. Dr. Veronica Ajawale and her team at the TSU Community Engagement Corps have been on the forefront of providing vital health and wellness information to our community. They've hosted leading experts and practitioners in the fields of prostate cancer, minority representation in clinical trials, breast cancer, and much more. Today, they shift their attention to artificial intelligence and the real-life impact it has and will have on us all. Today is all about awareness, advocacy, and action. Please take all you learned today back to your communities, your networks, and your friends, and keep the conversation going. Thank you to all the sponsors, exhibitors, speakers, panelists, partners, and attendees for making this an impactful and meaningful event. Enjoy the day. Bye-bye.
All right. It's always very inspirational to hear his voice. So next, we will have Dr. Ajawale to come up and present. Dr. Ajawale Mwima served as associate professor at Texas Southern University as a clinical pharmacist and adjunct assistant professor of oncology at the Houston Methodist Hospital. She received her PharmD from TSU, completed her oncology residency at the Houston Methodist Hospital. She is a board-certified oncology pharmacist and a clinical pharmacist in oral chemotherapy at Houston Methodist Cancer Center. She is the founding director of NIMHD-funded Community Engagement Corps of TSU's CBMHR and TSU's Institute for Health Equity Advancement Research and Training. Dr. Ajawale Mwima is the co-convener of this conference, and we are excited to have her present the health equity programs at TSU. Thank you, Dr. Ajawale.
Thank you so much, Dr. Poon. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It is such a pleasure to be here and sitting there, listening to this. I'm like, okay, I am humbled over and over again to have the privilege to stand in front of each and every one of you this morning. How is everyone doing? Awesome. It is such a pleasure to be here. And over the next few minutes, I am going to give us a brief overview of the Texas Southern University's health equity programs, just a highlight of some of the programs that we lead here at TSU. But before I go in, I want to recognize and appreciate the leadership of Texas Southern University. Our president just started with us this month, and he was able to make time out of his busy schedule to do that recording for us. And also saying a big thank you to VP Penn Marshall. She's currently on on a university travel. She's not able to join us this morning, as well as Dr. Monica Olaleye. These are amazing leaders that we have here at TSU who continue to support us in the great works that we do. So looking at the CBMHR, which is the Center for Biomedical and Minority Health Research, this is an NIMHD-funded $8.6 million award, and you see the faces of the leaders there, Dr. Olaleye, Dr. Jay, as well as Dr. Liang, being the PIs of this program, alongside myself, leading the Community Engagement Core, Dr. Gao, who leads the Research Investigator Core, and Dr. Poon, who you just heard from, leading the Investigator Development Core. The goal of the Community Engagement Core is pretty much 3 separate aims. The first is for us to be able to identify and address the health needs of the community, one of which we are doing today right now. We listen to the community, we know what the challenges are, and we do the best that we can to be able to address those challenges. The second thing that we do in Community Engagement Core is for us to increase information about clinical research participation. For some of you that might have been following us for some time, you will know that we have a lot of activities and funded opportunities about clinical trials. And lastly, we position ourselves to be able to share information back to the community. As an academic entity, we are very comfortable attending, scientific and academic conferences, but in this situation, we need to find a way to share back to the community, and that is one of the things that the Community Engagement Core does. In that same light, seated here in the room, and for many that are also online, consists of community members, representation from faith-based organizations, healthcare institutions, elected officials, all of us working together collaboratively to implement the events that we have. In your folder, you would see a lot of brochures and flyers identifying some of the programs that we do here at TSU. For us as Community Engagement Core, we believe in a bi-directional relationship. Everything you see here today is not just a representation of myself or my team. It is because we play close attention in listening to the community. We have focus groups, we host community engagement studio, we have surveys that helps us to align ourselves and evolve according to the need of the community. Additionally, we also provide continuing education for community health workers. Again, empowering people with the knowledge that they need for better healthcare outcomes. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of our other grant-funded initiatives. This that you see right here is a $1 million award from CPRIT that I have the privilege and the opportunity to be the program, the principal investigator and the program director for. Under our breast cancer initiative, we basically provide mammogram screening diagnostic services, breast cancer awareness information for uninsured and underinsured women. And I'm so excited to share that over the past 2.5 years, we have been able to successfully screen over 1,000 women, all at no cost. And I mean, this is amazing, really, really amazing opportunity to be able to serve and give back to the community. In addition to this, we also see our own mobile unit. For some people that have been following us for some time, you will see that we've talked about this mobile unit for some time now. Our mobile units every day brings us a step closer to receiving this mobile unit on TSU campus. One of the really exciting initiatives that we recently launched at TSU is the Equitable Breakthrough in Medicine Development Program, which is an acronym called EQB-Med. And what exactly does that mean? That means that TSU is now positioned to be a clinical trial site in the community. I think that opportunity deserves a big applause. Again, I have the privilege to lead that initiative alongside several leaders that you see on the screen. And TSU being a clinical trial naive site, we are partnering collaboratively with UTMB, which is a clinical trial proficient site, as we implement this particular initiative. Here I am going to highlight just a few additional programs that we have. This is the one funded by NCI NCI, National Cancer Institute, the P20 award, where we are literally positioning ourselves to diversify the workforce with, a better representation of ethnic minority individuals. We recently recruited the first cohort of these students. Currently, 20 TSU students are participating in this program. Several of them are currently in Baylor College of Medicine as we speak, doing diverse types of experiments, and we are really excited for that. This is another one led by VP Penn Marshall as well as Dr. Poon, where in Texas Southern University we have a better empowerment to be more research, to be able to conduct a greater field of research and related work here at TSU. The third one I want to highlight briefly is also about maternal and child health. Some of us, because we are here in Houston, unfortunately, the number and the outcome for maternal child health in Harris County is not where it needs to be. We're at the very, very low bottom when it comes to the outcome. So under the leadership of Dr. Monica Olale alongside Dr. Poon and so many other faces that you see there, we are implementing a center here at TSU to be able to alert and create awareness in the community to collaboratively advance equity for maternal and child health outcome. The last one I'm going to share here, really exciting one. Susan Tomlinson, thank you for sharing this opportunity with us. This is an award primarily owned by Texas A&M University, and we have a sub-award here at TSU. With this particular initiative, we are basically involving the concept of community engagement when it comes to innovation and commercialization. So when products or patents have been created, we want to make sure that we have the voices and representation of individuals like each of you here in the room and those that are also online to be able to engage with us, in implementing innovations across the board. And with all this, right, a lot of this momentum happening in TSU continues to position us for transformative, innovative, and sustainable impact in health equity advancement. So I've said a lot about background of community engagement course. So here I have a question. Why are we having this conference? Right? Why are we here? What are we doing here today? You could have been anywhere else on your desk, doing the great works that you do, but each of you chose time to be here in person as well as online. My hope is that we're able to answer these two questions, right? To say we really want to increase the awareness of community members about technology, artificial intelligence, and data in healthcare, and of course, to empower each of you to be able to utilize these tools effectively. So guess what? When this concept came to my mind late last year, we had a steering committee meeting with community engagement, and I'm like, hey, steering committee members, I need help. I have a blank sheet of paper. Amy, do you remember me saying that? I'm like, I have this concept, and there is a need in the community to discuss this, but guess what? All I have is a blank sheet of paper that says AI. How are we going to make it work? What are we going to do? So we had series of discussions and meetings, to be able to curate and to be able to put this event together. And I want to say a big thank you to Amy Waterman, who you're going to hear from shortly. Thank you, Amy, as well as Dr. Marino Bruce for helping us to carve and create this session, as well as Susan. We had a series of planning meetings to be able to define the exact goal for today's program. And I want to say a big thank you to all the wonderful faces that you see on this screen. It really takes a village. Please help me to appreciate my team. These people are incredible. They are awesome. They put it together. I say it often. I said I can capture the vision all I want. If I don't have the boots on the ground implementing, it is going to be a challenge. So I truly do appreciate everyone on my team. And of course, the Houston Methodist team. Amy, thank you for making that connection. Myra came in, and she's like, okay, Veronica, we're going to do it this way. We're going to bring in equipment and all these things. And Amy also mentioned this conference to Roberta Schwartz, who is the Executive VP and Chief Innovation Officer of Houston Methodist Hospital. Amy, please tell Roberta I said thank you. And of course, to all the other team members at Houston Methodist, Jill, Kimber, Judith, Brendan, and Tamila, thank you all so much for supporting us today. And to all our speakers and panelists, a big thank you goes to each and every one of you. There's somebody that you don't see the face on this slide. That is no one but my husband. Please help me to appreciate him. He serves as my sounding board all the time. I'm like, babe, I want to do this. Can we do it this way? Does it make sense? Can you help me refine? And honestly, there is no grant that I have written to date that he doesn't have at least one sentence, one line, one idea. So he's my unofficial staff member, if you will. Thank you for your love. Thank you for supporting me professionally and personally, and I'm really grateful. It's going to be 12 years next month, of us being married, and we are blessed with 4 amazing children. So thank you, babe, and thank you to our kids for supporting us in this program. So as part of the pre-registration, again, when we're crafting this program, we said we need to ask people, right? What devices do they use? What apps, what technology is involved in what they do? So these are some of the answers, that people shared. And we even have a whole lot more, but we can't fit everything on the slide. So this is just an highlight of the questions or the responses to the healthcare devices that people are already using. And then, as part of this, we also ask, what questions do you have? Because in us creating the panel session, we want to make sure that we do the best we can to be able to answer these questions. Again, this is a short list of the questions among, all of you that registered to come, and even those that are joining us on Zoom. As of yesterday, we had 130 people, that already pre-registered on Zoom. So hello, online audience. Thank you so much for joining us. So without further ado, I will lead us straight now into our first panel discussion, where we will be reviewing answers to some of these pre-registration questions and also highlight the use of technology, AI, and data in our day-to-day living. It is my pleasure to introduce upstage the moderator for this session. This is no one else but Dr. Tomlinson. Susan Tomlinson is the Director of Research Programs and Strategic Initiatives at the GCC. Her primary responsibility includes direction of the 12 GCC research consortia and clusters. In addition, she directs development of new multi-institutional research initiatives, scientific conferences, grant proposals, curriculum, and manages the John Donne Foundation Collaborative Research Award program. In addition, she directs the award-winning GCC Rigor and Reproducibility program, and she is the co-PI on the Cancer Therapeutics program. Susan earned a PhD in the University of Texas Medical Branch, Galveston, Texas, in biochemistry and molecular biology, specializing in computational drug discovery and lead optimization. So please join me to welcome upstage Susan Tomlinson. Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce and welcome upstage Mr. Uche Ogbo as a panelist representing the community. Mr. Uchenna Ogbo is an engineer and technology enthusiast with 20 years plus experience in IT industry, working for companies responsible for building cutting-edge technology and products. In his spare time, he enjoys gardening, DIY projects, and exploring new investment opportunities. Please help me to welcome Mr. Ogbo. Thank you. The third person I want to invite for this panel is going to be Dr. Sterling Carter. Dr. Sterling Carter brings over 25 years of experience as a professional physical therapist and is a decorated U.S. Army veteran. He served his country for over 2.5 decades, achieving the rank of Lieutenant Colonel before retiring. Dr. Carter earned his BS in biology and MS in physical therapy, as well as a doctorate of physical therapy for Simmons University. Additionally, Dr. Carter is a certified strength and conditioning specialist and a graduate of the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College. A successful serial entrepreneur, Dr. Carter has held multiple leadership positions throughout his career, and he is currently the president and CEO of Sterling Physical Therapy and Wellness. Please help me to welcome off stage Dr. Carter. Nice to have you, sir. The last panelist for this session is going to be Dr. Samuel Willis. Dr. Willis is an assistant professor at Baylor College of Medicine and a faculty at Aries Health System. He was the former director and currently practicing physician at the MLK Health Center, a community clinic for the underserved in Houston, Texas. He has worked at Strawberry Health Clinic as well as at Bentop General Hospital. Dr. Willis is passionate about improving lives with the less fortunate and has served in the U.S. Peace Corps volunteer in so many countries. He is the owner of Abundantly Living Home Care, an agency that provides personal care to the elderly. In addition to helping the underserved, Dr. Willis teaches and mentors medical students. Please join me in welcoming off stage Dr. Willis. Awesome. So that will kick us off with our first panel discussion. Over to you, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ajewale, and thank you to all of you and to the panelists. I'm excited as I look through these questions to learn from you guys. As I saw that first slide with all those different technologies, I'm like, wow, they're way more tech savvy than me. I haven't even heard of some of those. So the first question is for Mr. Agbo. What makes ChatGPT different from Googling?
Good morning, everyone. So ChatGPT is a relatively new technology, right? It's a large language model, AI chatbot. Googling is a term now in the dictionary where you go search for information online. They are similar in some ways because they provide answers to prompts, but the key difference is in how the data is presented. When you Google something, in the back end is doing a lot of search. It crawls, it has database where things are based on keywords are indexed and structured and presented based on relevance. So when you Google, it's going to give you the rank from 1 to however many. There are so many pages, but what you see at the beginning are the most relevant ones based on the keywords that you put in. And then you have to go in and then look at the data presented. You go to the websites, you see what information it is. It could be PDFs, it could be links to other websites, and then you validate that. The key thing about Googling is it's very somewhat real time, right? Because you're looking at what's happening almost to the minute. So if there's new data, it presents it to you, and so on and so forth. But you have to do the work of going and checking and looking at the data presented. ChatGPT is a chatbot, trained with very large data sets, massive, sometimes trillions of data sets, that is used to train the model. But it's limited by the currency, how current that data is. So if it was trained with data as far back as 2022, then the responses you will get will be limited by that. You won't get anything that happened yesterday or 2 days ago, or whatever the case is. But it presents the data in a more conversational way. So like you're talking to a human being, like a fellow person. So it's a bit more easier to relate to because it's a conversational flow. It presents that information that way, so you understand it and you appreciate it more. So there's the structure there. It would not be useful for the same thing, but it can be, both of them, you can use them in different ways, right? So if I'm trying to write a paper, I can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm trying to write a paper on this, what is the best way to get started? And it gives you guidance, right? The structure and everything. But it, again, is limited to how current the data that it was trained with is. So you have to be careful there. I would say, if someone is trying to choose which one should I deal with, depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to write a research paper, it might be good to get data from Google and then use that to work with ChatGPT to structure how to write your research. But again, like all these things, everything depends on the quality of the prompt that you put in. If I put in very good prompt, I'm going to get good response. If I put it ambiguous prompt, it's going to struggle in what it provides to me. And it's making up data based on everything it's been trained with, right? So it's trying to say, if, for example, I'm searching for the best restaurant in Houston, it would look through all this data and try to figure out, based on the responses received, what the best restaurant in Houston is and provide you that information. So I would, one is not better than the other at this moment. It depends exactly on what the use cases are. But you can combine both and get very good, very efficient in what you're doing.
Thank you. Okay, this next question is for Dr. Carter. And it is, how can technology and artificial intelligence be used to improve community and public health? And how do you discuss their impact with community members?
Thank you, Dr. Tomlinson. And thank you, Dr. Veronica and CBMHR and TSU for this amazing conference and what you do each and every day. In regards to community and health access, there's several different ways that AI and technology play into that. Number one is the access. So if we have community members that aren't able, maybe they live in a rural community, et cetera, and can't get into the big city for health care, we have telehealth. We have remote therapeutic monitoring where we can still communicate with our patients even if they're not able to come into our doors. Everything is changing in regards to how we treat. When we talk about data analysis and prediction, we can take information, we can take your healthcare history from over the last 20 years, and we can analyze that information and come up with the most probable diagnosis and probable treatment outcome for you individually. And that's something that before we could do, but it would take a lot of time and a lot of research. Now we can take all that data, put it into the system, and give us something accurate in a matter of seconds or minutes. That does not take the place of a doctor. We're not using data or AI to replace what we're doing. We're using that to help us improve in what we're able to do. In regards to how we're using technology and with the community, we're able to, for example, create a mobile app where we can have communication tools where we can communicate with the community directly. It's now in a situation where doctors can actually communicate with their patients on an everyday, regular basis. Whereas before, you may have to call and talk to the nurse or talk to the nurse assistant, and you may not get an answer back, or you have to call and wait on the phone. It just changes the experience. So we're seeing just significant improvements. One of the organizations that I'm in, which is the 100 Black Men in Metropolitan Houston, we have a huge health and awareness committee and structure. And what it allows us to do is to get out into the community and educate in a more streamlined fashion. So a lot of great things.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Okay, this next one's for you, Dr. Willis. How has technology impacted patient outcomes in your practice? Any specific improvements with blood glucose control and blood pressure control due to continuous glucose monitoring and home blood pressure monitoring devices?
It's good to be here. Thank you, Dr. Veronica, and everyone who put this program together. I'll talk to you about my personal experiences with these devices and how it's impacted my patients. The continuous glucose monitor, I think, is a very good tool. Prior to that, people had to poke their fingers in order to get a blood sample and check their blood sugar 1 point at a time. So you would have to check it 2 or 3 times a day. With the continuous glucose monitor, you poke yourself in the arm with a device that continuously monitors the blood sugar, and it gives you a reading continuously, so you can see how your blood sugar is doing without actually poking your finger. For patients who don't like to be poked in their fingers, like me, I wouldn't want to be poked in the finger. My fingers are very sensitive. That helps them monitor their blood sugar. And by monitoring their blood sugar, they are more aware of their disease. They're more aware of their diabetes and more likely to take care of themselves. When they see that blood sugar is high, they say, oh yeah, I definitely need to take my medication. So it reminds them that they need to take the medication. So I have seen patients use the monitor with increased compliance. And so we know the patients who have improved diabetes will have improved outcome. So it's not a direct outcome, but it's more of a compliance measure for me. So if you're able to use the monitors, you get more information and helps the patients to monitor their blood sugar better. As far as the home blood pressure monitors, we at our clinic actually have a home monitor program. We give patients their own blood pressure machine that they take, and they measure their blood pressure and send the readings in to the clinic. It has evolved to getting nurses and community health workers involved. So now a patient with a high blood pressure doesn't necessarily need to run to the emergency center, but actually talk to a nurse or talk to a community health worker about whether their medication is working or not. It has actually helped with compliance also, because now they're checking their blood pressure and realizing that it's not just high in the doctor's office, but it's high at home too. And so it's not the white coat hypertension, it's really high blood pressure that's affecting your health, and it becomes more personal. And then they take more accountability for their own health. And so now they start looking at the diet, they start looking at the medications, and then they get opportunity to report to the nurse and the community health worker any of the side effects of the blood pressure medicines, reasons they're not taking them. And all of that information is relayed back to me in the clinic without having a doctor appointment. So the nurses can get that information, send it to me, and then I can send a response to the nurse who relays that information to the patient. So this kind of changes the way we do healthcare. And for people who are very busy and people who have a lot of responsibilities taking care of family, being able to monitor your blood pressure at home helps them a lot as far as being compliant. And then it actually creates an opportunity for them to have a discussion about how the medicine's affecting them and about compliance. So I would say for me, in my practice, the outcome is compliance. And if we use these tools, the patients are more compliant.
Thank you. Okay, we're back to Mr. Ogbo. Are there any developments around leveraging generative AI and LLMs to improve health outcomes for marginalized communities by providing self-advocacy support in an app?
I mean, just like these gentlemen have said, there's a lot of progress, right? I would say a lot of it depends on access. So if you have access, there are so many different tools out there that can help you, whether it's your fitness journey, different kind of journeys you're going through, regardless of where you come from. And the ability to understand how to leverage that, right, and provide the right kind of information, and it would help provide the guidance that you need to improve whatever it is your objective is. So with large language models, generative AI, everything comes down again to the kind of data set that it has access to. So when healthcare organizations create these apps and they provide access, like he mentioned, if you have 20 years worth of data available for someone, then it's able to make predictions on how, if you continue in this path, this is the possible outcome. But one of the things when I was looking at that question I think is important is to understand the behavior of the individual. Because no matter how much app you put in anyone's access, if you don't change your behavior, you're always going to struggle. A lot of us here have gone through journeys where we get provided with something and it's reminding us every day, hey, you need to take your medications, you need to do this, you need to do that. At some point, we turn that off because we get irritated by it. If you're committed to improving your situation, whatever your health situation is, those apps would help you. Those tools will help you, but you also have to be fully committed to it and stick to it, because they are the guidance. They provide you, some kind of assistance to improve your situation. So, the whole thing about self-advocacy is where you are, to an extent, taking charge of your own path, whether it's your health or whatever it is your target is. But like I said, those tools are there based on the data you provide. It can chart a path for you to follow, but then it's up to you to embrace that fully. So there's a lot of health agents now, that you don't even have to go to the hospital. You provide information and it it gives you a summary of what you could do and helps the doctors understand what's going on with you, and then they kind of prepare themselves for when you come to meet them. So those tools are there. A lot of investment is currently going on in that healthcare space. A lot of companies are pouring money into it because there's a whole world of data. Every time you go to the hospital, you're generating data. And that data can be used to determine predictive or things that can improve your health. So it's important that we embrace that, but change the mindset around these tools. It's not that they're there to provide guidance, but you also have to embrace what it gives to you so you can get the required outcome from it.
Thank you. Dr. Carter, how can technology and artificial intelligence be applied to nutrition, weight loss, and physical therapy programs?
Great questions. We're actually using it quite a bit already. Just to give you guys examples of how we can use it in real time, smartwatches. So everyone probably has an Apple Watch or a Samsung Watch nowadays that can actually track your heart rate. It can track your step count. It can give you reminders when you've been sitting too long and you need to stand up. It's absolutely changing the game in regards to how we can improve our health and our fitness. And we use the same type of tools in regards to nutrition. We're actually utilizing those tools in order to create the best possible diet approach for you specifically. We can look at how you've been eating over the last 2 or 3 weeks, take that information, and actually create a customized meal plan for you. And that has not been possible in the past. Those that are really, really good, those healthcare practitioners that were really good and took the time, they would probably create a customized meal plan. But for the most part, if you go to see a nutritionist or a dietitian, they're going to give you a kind of a staple plan based on if you're diabetic or if you're hypertensive, et cetera. So now we can customize those things. In regards to physical therapy, we now have online, we talked about earlier, mobile apps where we can actually put your exercises in that program. In the days past, we would give patients a home exercise program, we print it out, and the dog would eat it, or they would throw it away, or something like that, and they would not complete their exercises. So now what we can do is we can put the app in their phone, they can open up the app, it's a video demonstration of the exercises. We can actually monitor how often they're going in and doing those exercises. They can communicate with us directly if they have a question or if something hurts. In real time, they can communicate with us. We get an email, and we can just respond back to that email. So it's just changing how we approach healthcare. It's actually decreasing the cost of healthcare as well and improving the efficiency. And that's what we want ultimately, because right now in the United States, we have probably one of the most expensive healthcare systems in the world, but our outcomes are not at the top. So how can we get things better? And this is a great way for us to kind of mend that breach where we can have a decrease in cost and an increase in outcomes.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Willis, what does the future of healthcare look like with all of the inventions in technology and artificial intelligence?
That's a very good question, and I don't know, to be honest with you. I will give you my perspective on AI and how I think it's going to work for primary care physicians. I will tell you that I'm day-to-day talking to patients about blood pressure and diabetes, and I'm not even aware of the AI that's being developed. And I think most physicians are actually in that position. I'll just tell a quick story. I was invited by one of my friends who is owner of an artificial intelligence technology company, and he wanted to speak at the college that we went to together. He asked me to come. And it was amazing to me the things that he was talking about. I had no idea. And I think most physicians are in that position. So he said that based on the way you sit in your car, they have these pressure sensors in the seat of the car. And they can tell based on that, because of where you're driving, what neighborhood you're in, your weight on the seat, they can predict whether you're going to develop diabetes in the next 2 or 3 years. And that's just a different way of looking at things. It kind of scared me. So, but the point of the story is to say that as healthcare providers, we need to be educated on this new technology. I think that it's here. We need to embrace it, and we need to understand it. Patients need to understand it, and we need to know how to use it. I think it's going to be a tool that healthcare can use in the future. In my mind, this is just my limited mind, thinking about the artificial intelligence, I think of it as a supercomputer who's able to crank out this data and make these predictions, help us make diagnosis, so we'll be able to better fine-tune what our potential diagnoses are for a patient. So as a physician, you may be thinking, this is one diagnosis, but the computer gives you 4 or 5 other diagnoses that you need to consider. And I think that will help us improve our accuracy in diagnosing patients, and then also helping us to choose what treatment would be best. So we may be thinking in our limited understanding what might be the best treatment, but the computer or artificial technology may be able to supplement that and giving us some different ideas of how to treat the same problem. So I don't think that that it will replace a physician, because you still need somebody to make a decision about some of the information that's put there in front of you. And you also need to be able to interact and communicate with people and tailor that treatment to that particular patient. So one treatment plan is going to be different based on the person's preferences. And so I don't think that artificial intelligence will be able to do that kind of thing. It's more of a human interaction. And so I just think in general that we should embrace the artificial intelligence, understand it, use it as a tool, and be prepared for it.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like we have about 3 minutes. Huh? One question. Okay, so we have enough time for one audience question. Somebody want to come to the microphone and ask a question? Okay.
Is this working? Yes. Yeah. Suresh Bhavnani from UTMB. Actually, I have a 2-part question. One has to do with privacy, right? So if AI is collecting so much information about us, how do we protect our privacy? So that's an ongoing question. Part B is a warning that ChatGPT actually makes up information often. It hallucinates, and even though it's very powerful, we have to make sure that it's not lying to us, so be careful.
So let me address the hallucination part. So it's like I said earlier, it's based on data that it's been trained with. It's just like a 5-year-old who has imagination, right? So you ask a question, they start off with something they know, and then they veer off on a different tangent. But that's a very important warning that you just called out, which is when it provides you with responses, it's on you to validate that information. It's on you. Don't take it hook, line, and sinker and then run with it. That's where you have, but like we're talking about Google, you can go do a Google search and just validate what is provided you with. But it doesn't remove the fact that it's taking some of the grunt work out, because it's giving you data that you can go and reference. If you're trying to write a paper, it gives you data, framework that you can work with. Now, instead of spending 3, 4, 5 hours coming up from scratch, you just spend a little bit less time just validating the data, right? That's the one part. Privacy, on the other hand, is something that is, as long as you have access to the internet and you're putting data out there, you're always going to have to deal with privacy. Now, within healthcare, I know that most of these AI companies, what they're doing now is provide customized environments for organizations that deal with compliance a lot and have issues with privacy concerns. So they can create something specific for you so that every data you put in there doesn't leave that wall. It's like guardrails within it. So you can feed it with data, patient data, and be confident that it wouldn't go out of that guardrail. But again, like everything else, treat it with some caution. So that's always anything concerning the internet, computers, and access to the outside world. You have to always treat with some level of caution.
I would agree with that. What I will say is the research that I've done, AI right now is like the wild, wild west. We have Microsoft that's competing for the latest and greatest OpenAI. We have OpenAI, ChatGPT. We have Apple now that's just jumped into it. We have Elon Musk, and everyone is trying to get into this billion-dollar industry. And right now, there's not a lot of control measures. The government is looking at it and trying to figure out what can we do in order to make sure that we keep this from getting out of control, but we don't really have that right now. So I would agree. I think we just need to proceed with caution and just make sure that we monitor what we're doing as much as we can until there's more safety measures out there.
So I'll just respond to the privacy part of it because that's more relevant to what I do. We used to have paper charts everywhere, and now we have a computer chart. In our system, we use Epic. And there was a lot of concern about privacy and people accessing patients' information. And there's a big push by the government to secure all of that information. So, of course, you know about HIPAA. And so every year you have to take the compliance test and you have to do everything to make sure you're trying to keep patient data secure. It is an issue. It does need to be secure. But just like the gentlemen were saying, the government has to catch up on what this new technology is and provide that protection because your health information tells so much about you. And it's so important that that is secure, right? And so you don't want to go to a doctor and have all your medical information all over the internet and people know everything about you. I think that, so the point of what I'm trying to say is that they have transitioned. We've transitioned from paper chart to computer medical records. And it has, in my mind, been successful for my practice. And I think in most other places too, and in some ways probably more secure now than the paper chart. So there's ways of doing it. I think the people who are developing this technology must know how to control it and then share that information with the government. And we should have the government play a role in protecting us and then also educating the healthcare providers and patients about how to protect their personal information.
We'll thank our panelists, and we'll move on to the next section.
Thank you to our panel discussion. We appreciate you so much in your responses. We will now move into our next panel discussion, and I'll be introducing our moderator for this one, Judith, apologizing for the, Kaczynski, thank you. Judy is celebrating her 35th year at Houston Methodist, where she serves as a privacy officer. Judy's introduction into healthcare privacy occurred in 1999 when privacy was an emerging topic, and she was asked to create a privacy program for Houston Methodist. In 2000, Judy established a privacy roundtable discussion group, which includes privacy experts from throughout the Texas Medical Center, and that group continues to meet monthly. She chairs Houston Methodist Data Governance Committee and serves on their Information, Privacy, and Security Committee and their Artificial Intelligence Data Governance Committee. Judy is also a member of the Healthcare Compliance Association and holds their Certified Healthcare Compliance Professional and Certified in Healthcare Privacy Compliance designations. She has earned a Bachelor's of Business Administration and Business Analysis and Research from Texas A&M, GIGM, and Judy also holds a Master's of Business Administration. Yes. Welcome to our moderator. Next, we have Christina Solis. Christina Solis has been with UT Health Houston for over 22 years, and she has seen it all. She is the institution's privacy officer, offering expertise on patient, student, and other personally identifiable information. She trains personnel, investigates complaints, develops policies, and works with stakeholders to best protect privacy while furthering the UT Health Houston mission. Ms. Solis has a law degree from the University of Houston, a Master's of Public Health from UT Health School of Public Health, and spent her undergraduate studies at Pomona College in California, Pembroke College at Oxford University in the United Kingdom. Welcome to Ms. Solis. Next, we have Monique Allen. Monique serves as VP and Chief Privacy Officer and Associate General Counsel at Memorial Hermann Health System. In her role, she provides advice and counsel to the organization in respect to both complex and routine privacy, data sharing, release of information, research, and a variety of other legal issues impacting electronic medical records, data privacy, and data use. Prior to joining the legal and privacy departments, Monique spent 6 years in a variety of risk management positions at Memorial Hermann, including the Director of Risk Management at Memorial Hermann Texas Medical Center and the System Director of Clinical Risk Management. Prior to her legal work and risk management roles, Monique worked as a registered nurse for 10 years. She received her bachelor's degree magna cum laude in nursing from Arizona State University, her Juris Doctorate from the University of Minnesota Law School, and hopes to finish her master's degree in nursing. Welcome to Monique. Our last panelist is Tessie Carpenter. Ms. Carpenter is the Director of the Compliance and Privacy Office at Texas Children's Hospital. She joined Texas Children's after she earned her law degree from the University of Houston Law Center. Over the past 17 years, Tessie has advanced through several roles, each with greater responsibilities in hospital and professional billing compliance, patient privacy, and data loss prevention. Before her tenure at Texas Children's, Tessie worked as an accountant at an energy trading company. Welcome to Ms. Carpenter.
Good morning. I learned a lot in that last session as my watch kept reminding me every hour that I'm supposed to make that doctor appointment. It's been reminding me since November. So whoever said we need to use the technology, I heard that message. But it also saved me earlier this year when it was alerting me about my heart. So I made the phone call that day and had a heart cardioversion the next day. So technology really can be our friend if we're listening to it. So I brought my colleagues with me. Thank you. We have been meeting since 2000, since the year 2000, as we try to navigate privacy. And we still navigate privacy. So before we can talk about informed data sharing, we really need to understand privacy and some of the fundamental concepts in that realm. So it's important to appreciate privacy and to understand what the limits are and what your rights are, because the more we trust one another between the provider and the patient, and the more transparent we are, and the better we communicate, then the better our outcomes will be. And that's what privacy gives us. It's a nice foundation to have that conversation and to know we're doing our best to protect everything that you give us. We're all on the same page trying to move in the right direction, the same direction. So there are several privacy laws. The one that we have more angst about and that we live daily would be HIPAA. And HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So your providers, your hospitals, your doctors, your clinics, your dentists, we are all covered by this law, HIPAA. And what HIPAA does, it doesn't, I heard it described once to say, hey, this notice of privacy practices tells you that your information's confidential. We'll keep it confidential. What HIPAA does is a little different. It explains our boundaries. It bounds us to the ways we can use your information. But it also gives patients rights. So there are both sides to this dynamic in privacy. So HIPAA establishes boundaries on how we use the information. We may use it for treatment. We've got to treat you. We have to have the information. And you may have another provider that's treating you, and we can talk about that for your treatment. We'll use it for payment. We'll use it for healthcare operations. We want to make sure we're here tomorrow to provide you that care. So we can also use it to communicate with you, or to send you communications, fundraising. You can opt out of that if you don't want it. There are different ways we can use this information. At the same time, it offers these rights that I mentioned. You have the right to be communicated with at a different location than what you don't want that letter coming to your house. You'd rather go over to this other location. Maybe you don't want to concern your loved ones at your home. You have a right to restrictions. You have a right to access your information, to amend your information, to an accounting of disclosures. You can ask for a listing of who we've shared this information with. You also have the right to file a complaint if you think that we are not handling your information correctly. And you have a right to receive notification if we do make errors and mishandle your information. So I think if we understand these rights and these boundaries, then we can have really good communication. And how do you learn about these rights and these boundaries? You've already received a document. If you've been to a provider since 2004, you've received that notice of privacy practices. It's a long document. I don't know how long you guys is, but I know mine's 7 pages. A little longer. So they're not short documents, but they're full of information. You will learn from that document how we expect to use your information. You will learn how to exercise your rights. Contact this individual, write to this individual, here's their phone number. All of that is spelled out in this very important document. So I think we can further discussion about how the data sharing conversation if we understand this other piece of HIPAA and privacy, because it is so important, those foundations, in order to then be able to share information. So I'm going to start with Tessie. Tessie, we now have patient portals, through, ours would be, through Epic, right? But patient portals allow patients to access their information and so much more. Can you tell me more about these portals, especially in the context of sharing data?
Sure. So we really saw the advancement of patient portals, I think, starting about 15 years ago. So patient portals are, and there were incentives from the government originally to allow providers or incentivize providers to adopt patient portals. Many providers in the Houston area, many of the large providers are on Epic as the electronic medical record system, and Epic's patient portal is called MyChart. So many people have heard of MyChart because it's the patient portal for Epic. But starting around 15 years ago, providers starting using these patient portals, giving access to patient accounts. I think even within the patient portal, we're seeing, a lot of development in the information that is available to you through the patient portal. Patient portals make it, and I think with everything technology-wise, including patient portals, there are benefits and there are risks. There are, and I think I could probably speak a lot about what I think are the benefits of a patient portal, but it is, with a grain of salt that there are risks for data security. It's another password and username to keep up with. It can be confusing. It can be a lot of information. But what we've seen in even the developments of patient portals from the original versions to the current version is there's a lot more information that's being provided now. There is a combination of data from other providers. So like speaking from myself as a patient, I see a provider at Texas Children's, I see a provider at Kelsey-Seybold, I see a provider at Houston Methodist. And when I log into my patient portal account, if I've had the same lab over a period of years run by different providers, it puts it all together. And looking at my own information is the most interesting, for me to see how, what happened that year, what did I do different, what changes can I make? So that's like a more recent development that's kind of amalgamating all of this information from different providers. For me as the patient in one place, I myself will sit for my kids sitting at a softball game and I'll think, oh, I need to make a an ENT follow-up visit. Instead of having to wait till I get home, I sit there, I pull up the portal, and I go search for an appointment, and I make an appointment right there so I don't, forget. If I have questions about what did the doctor say last time we were at the visit, I pull it up and I immediately have it. Prior to patient portals, you would have received a lot of paper and had to organize it, had to find the information. It does make it a lot easier to find that information. Make appointment requests, ask a clarifying question. For minors, we're able, and we do give both parents access to the minors MyChart patient portal account, so both parents can see the information. See, even if both parents aren't at a visit, they can see what the recommendations, what the plan of care is. For my elderly parents, they can give me access to their they can give me access to their patient portal. So my parents live in Oklahoma. I'm not always with them at appointments, but when we have questions or what was your lab value? What did the doctor say? Myself and my siblings, because my parents have given us that access, we can go in and look at the information and help get clarification or ask them to ask questions of their doctor, that sort of thing. So those are a lot of the benefits of patient portals, but there are risks with like the data inappropriate data sharing, somebody hacking into my account, all of those types of risks that come with data handling.
Thank you, Tessie. Any questions for Tessie? I used the portal for my daughter and my mother, and I found it really helpful. I didn't want to go in there and snoop, but I wanted to make sure, I get those reminders. You've got this appointment. Well, I didn't know Mom had that appointment, and it helps keep me on track. And then, of course, I can pay the bills. And I guess you can. The other advantage to the patient portal is just asking that question when you're worried about something. You can go straight to the provider. Let's see here. Healthcare providers hold a wealth of data and have the important job of protecting it. But in some cases, it's to the patient's benefit to share portions of the information. Monique, will you share your expertise on informed consent as we're sharing that data?
Sure. Thank you. I think the first thing I'll say about informed consent and sharing data is going back to a comment that Judy made at the very beginning, is that notice of privacy practice. Just by way of show of hands, how many of you have actually read or received a notice of privacy practice? What it typically looks like is it's a fold out, it may be a booklet, okay? That's like the holy grail, right? It's like the holy grail of what we're doing with your information, how we can use and disclose it. So if you haven't looked at that document, I would encourage you to read that document. I think that really starts the basis for informed consent around data sharing. And you may not really be able to actually say yes or no to how a healthcare provider shares your information, but you may be given opportunities to say, hey, I want to opt out. And it's reading through that document that provides, where can I opt out? What's going to happen even if I do not consent? So that is the basis of what I would say. I think Tessie mentioned portals. I think it's getting into the portal. A lot of times MyChart gives you the option to select your preferences. You can opt out. I don't want it shared. I don't want to participate in Care Everywhere. But I think the important thing to remember about data sharing is, even though you say no, doesn't necessarily mean that information is not going to be shared. It may not be shared through a particular platform or application, but a doctor could still, you could say, I don't want you to share my information to Dr. So-and-so, right? But a hospital doesn't have to agree to honor that restriction. You have the right to ask us, but we don't necessarily have to agree to that. So I think the basis of making sure and being informed is reading that document. Read it, pull it out, ask questions. And I think sometimes when you go to providers, depending upon their electronic medical record, you may have to request to get a paper copy, but you absolutely have a right to receive a paper copy, right? They'll ask you to acknowledge that you received it, and maybe you've never read it, maybe you did receive it and you sort of tossed it, right, because it's paper. We are required to have it posted on our websites. So you can go and you can read it, you can favorite, you can bookmark it, you can ask questions about it. So I would say that's the basis of making sure you're informed and are giving consent, and that you're opting out in places where you can, where you do not want your information shared. Any questions?
If I went to a hospital and I was sick, I don't have the cognitive capacity to go through that information. So are there creative ways of making that information more accessible to patients? Because I'm an AI professor, and if I am sick, I'm not going to read that document. So I was just wondering what ideas we might have.
So I think I can speak on experience, and I can also tell you a little bit about what our process is. For patients that come into the hospital, one, if they're sick and maybe because of their medical condition, they're not able to make decisions, they're not able to comprehend it, we do look to explain that to a loved one that comes in with them. We also present it, we give out booklets called patient guides. That patient guide has tons of information about just your hospital stay. It also explains who are all of these people that are walking into my room providing different aspects of care. But it also, in a very shortened version, talks about how your information will be used or shared. Most healthcare providers have a privacy hotline. Primarily, we receive complaints on our privacy hotline, but you can call and ask a question. You can ask your provider if you don't understand. So I think there are lots of ways to get information, because I think it's a good point, right? That document sometimes can seem very complex. But one of the things I would say, I'm a nurse by background, I always encourage my patients to ask me questions, right? What's on your mind? If we don't talk, right, in the next 2 minutes of a conversation, what would you ask me? What are you thinking? What do you want to ask your doctor that maybe you're afraid to ask your doctor? Ask me. We can have a dialogue. So don't be afraid to ask questions and question them about how they're using and disclosing your information.
What thoughts are going through your head?
Oh, sorry, one more question.
Hello. I have a question. I don't know if this has to do with your hospital stay, but give an example. Let's say I had a mammogram and I want to know the results. They'll send it to my chart, I guess, and instead of them informing me that what my results are or calling me, I'm so old-fashioned. I'm used to someone calling you and say, okay, everything was negative, everything was fine. You're waiting for them or your doctor to say everything was cool. And you have to go to your chart to find out before you're notified that, it used to be a time they would call you on the phone or send your email or something so you'll know. Now you're sitting here waiting and says, well, I haven't heard from them. And you're not thinking you need to go to that chart to find out what's going on because you're waiting for them to tell you. And it's the same way if you've had a physical or something like that. And it's not until I happened to go to my chart one time and I saw all kinds of information about when I had been here, this year, this date, and so forth. And I was like, oh, that's where it is. But no one, and this might have been just a annual visit, and it showed me, okay, you had this shot, you did this is who you saw, you had these x-rays, etc. But no one from that office actually called me. They were expecting me to go in and check it online. But through data sharing, the other healthcare providers have gotten that information. And I don't know what my question is. I'm trying to figure out why.
I can answer a couple of things or make comments to a couple of things that you've said. I can help formulate some questions.
Why, like you said, if he's not, if he's busy and he's not checking, and a lot of times you don't think to check, why aren't the providers now actually saying, okay, you're fine? Why do we have to go look.
So I'll make a couple comments, and then I'll let my colleagues maybe chime in a little bit on that. I'll sort of maybe stick to the piece around informed consent. I think a really important part of what she mentioned in her story is she didn't necessarily get the notification that the result was posted. So that is one of those things that you, as a patient, as a consumer, can control. You can go, and it might be two-step, depending upon your phone, but when you download that app on your phone, you can choose to receive notifications from the MyChart. So that's the first thing you want to do if you want to receive the notification, so that it's not, you're of the 99 things you have going on, you don't have to remember to get back into that portal. I think the other piece of what she brought up that Tessie mentioned is there are new laws out there that give incentives to healthcare providers to implement electronic technology. But now there are updated laws that require us to release the results to you even before your provider has seen them. We are required to release it to you. There are very few circumstances where we can hold it back. So oftentimes when you've gotten it, it may be because your provider really has not seen it just yet. So in many of our portals, we'll have some little disclaimer language at the top that says, your provider may not have seen this result. If you have questions, if you have concerns, please contact your provider, right? So I think even though you didn't formulate it in the form of a question, there are a lot of really important points that you brought up about receiving your notifications. There's all sorts of requirements around mammograms that they also have to send you written notification in the mail and all sorts of things. But it's a really important point. Again, make sure you're telling your healthcare provider how you want to receive healthcare communication. If you want to receive an email instead of a text message or that pop-up, tell them. If you want to receive the communication in writing, tell them. It's a really important piece of making sure you have consent. And then I'll let Tessie or Christina comment on other aspects of the portal.
I was going to chime in to make sure that your provider knows your preference. And I think it is something that's changed over the years. And my personal experience is that providers will call if it is an unusual result or if it's a result that I need to take action on. But if they're lab tests and they're all normal and there's no nothing to follow up on, they do just post it to MyChart. And I typically get a note from the provider in MyChart that says, everything was good, we'll see you next year. Those types of notes. But I think, one important thing is to let your provider know that you have a preference for a phone call, whether or not there's anything you need to do or not. And then, yes, as Monique was saying, results do sometimes post before the doctors even had a chance to review them.
Absolutely. I would agree. It takes and so the comment for the rest of the group was it takes away some of the personal interaction and relationship. And I'll tell you the way that I manage that with my providers, I simply tell my provider, are you going to call me? Are you going to text me? What are you going to do? Or do I have to look in the portal? And I ask the question as plainly as that. And they will say, they'll come in the portal if you have a question, look at it. And so I try to talk with them before, right, as they're ordering things. Now, how am I going to get, you're telling me to go over to Quest or LabCorp or wherever and get these labs drawn. How am I going to get the results? Just ask them and have them have that conversation with you so then you're not surprised.
Okay, thank you, Monique. All right, thank you for the questions. These are great questions. You can see privacy is not easy. And technology offers challenges. Data and technology can be used to motivate us in our daily lives, and it can help our physicians provide effective treatments, help serve society as we witnessed during the pandemic. Technology has really provided an avenue to engage the patient more actively in collecting data and detecting issues through monitoring. These technologies are promising for improving the care of our patients. Christina, will you share your thoughts on data for the individual, data for clinical care, and data for the greater good in the context of data sharing?
Sure, thank you. I have a minor anecdote I wanted to kind of give about the text messaging. I found out I was pregnant when I was on an elliptical machine, and I got a text from the lab. I had gone to the lab, done the test. I'd gone to the gym directly off to take my mind off of things, and I get a click from the lab. I just didn't even bother to, consider what it was. I nearly fell off when I found out I was pregnant. So I'm very, very, very sensitive to that particular issue with regard to how our data is used on a personal level and the personal interactions that our patients now have with their data. From the very beginning, we've always had access to our data. The HIPAA privacy rule, the number one thing that it says is that we are permitted to share information with the Department of Health and Human Services to enforce HIPAA, and we are permitted to share information with the patient. Everything else with regard to patient data is permission. It's not a requirement to share data. Those are the two areas that we are absolutely required to share data, to the HIPAA police and to the patients. But it's been a process to share our data over the years. You have to go to medical records, you have to fill out a form, you have to do all these things. And now with the portals, it makes it a lot easier, in part because another law that was relatively recently enforced requires us, like Monique said, to push out that data through the portals once we get it. So this empowers our patients to be able to act quickly upon their data. And then we have data that's coming from 100 different sources. I am wearing a watch that maintains my hours of sleep every night, that I can kind of keep track of how well I'm resting every night. This particular watch also will keep track of my heart rate. I can turn it on all day. I can do all day heart rate monitoring. I choose not to do that because of battery life, but it does keep track of my heart rate when I am exercising or anything like that, so I can kind of monitor how my cardiovascular health is doing on a personal level. So we as healthcare consumers have a lot more information than we used to, and we can act upon that information. Like the previous panel was talking about, that blood glucose monitoring that is constantly giving information to your providers is also giving information to you to act upon. And this is extraordinarily empowering, but it can also be overwhelming, where we're being flooded and flooded and flooded. And many of us are compelled to go to Dr. Google to find out what's going on. And as everybody who's ever gone to Dr. Google knows, the first thing it says, you're gonna die immediately. And so the second area where we were just discussing is our providers. And they are also very, very much more able to get a hold of data than they used to be. It used to be that you had to request the data from another facility, wait 6 to 8 weeks for it to show up, and then be able to deal with it, or your patient had to bring it in, and then you had to hope and pray that that particular chart that they brought was a complete chart. And even then, the provider would redo the tests because they weren't necessarily certain. Now, many of the electronic medical records are interactive. Those of us who are all on Epic can go through a part of Epic called Care Everywhere, which allows a provider at my institution to look at a provider at Judy's institution's record, and this is only if the patients are shared. We're not permitted to share the information between providers if it's not a shared patient. And see, okay, at Judy's facility, they'd had the MRI, so we don't have to redo the MRI unless it was 2 years ago, and then we want to kind of see what's going on. And that empowers our providers to give better care and not have to waste everybody's time in redoing steps or anything like that. It's a continuity of care. The caveat on that is that they have a lot of information, and sometimes they might not be able to review all of that information because some charts are bigger than others, and there's a ton. They have a limited amount of time to review every single piece of information in a patient's chart before they can move forward. But that's extraordinarily helpful. And then with regard to society as a whole, we have a ton of data tools now that we can use for two reasons, or several reasons. One, like in the pandemic, we have public health surveillance. So all of the hospitals were reporting the number of patients who were coming in with COVID, the number of patients who were coming in who needed elevated levels of care with COVID. So we could figure out from a global perspective how to best allocate healthcare resources in the community. And that's over anything and everything. We do constantly, and all of our institutions, and most in the country, the larger institutions do what we call quality improvement projects, and that is looking at what's going on in our facilities and looking at data across patients, across time, across all sorts of various projects to try to figure out what's going on. How can we better serve our patients using the data that we have? And then, in addition to that, we also have research data. We have my facility is a health science center, and we have tons and tons of research opportunities where we either recruit patients and the patients sign informed consents to provide their data to researchers, or what we do is what they call a retrospective chart review, where our researchers will ask a research question and review former charts. These are all protected by an institutional review board that ensures one of the major concerns of the institutional review boards is how is privacy being taken care of. So those are basically how data is empowering and making healthcare more robust, but it's again overwhelming because there's so much data to handle.
Christina, great points. And you made this point early in your remarks, though, that they're with permission.
Yes.
So the sharing where you can come into our Epic, it's when you have an open encounter and we have an encounter and the patient has said, I would like to participate in the health information exchange.
Exactly.
So it's not like we just go and get the data, but it sure does save on cost. It helps with that transparency and better communication. And then your second thing that you said we do, I've lost thought of it. Well, before research, what was it?
The clinicians? The healthcare
Operations. So there's also the concept of minimum necessary. So while we can use the data, we may not use all the data. We're only going to use the data that we need to perform that function.
And that's a requirement by law. We are not permitted to use for healthcare operations and for payment purposes. We are not permitted to use information beyond the minimum necessary information required to accomplish whatever it is what we want to require. And that includes the quality improvement projects. So if we're looking to see whether or not we're having poor outcomes in a particular community because of asthma or something like that, then those quality improvement projects are only going to be looking at things related to asthma. They're not going to be looking at some of the other aspects that might be going on with a particular patient population. But population health is a huge part of our practices these days, and minimum necessary is a very important part of it. With regard to the research studies, the researchers are required to list the information that they're looking for, and the IRB will say, you don't need the whole chart for this. All you need is XYZ. And the medical records are becoming more sophisticated that we can really parse out XYZ. It's a lot easier to kind of filter through the charts and only find the 432 labs that we need, as opposed to having to sift through 432 labs.
And then I know we need to close, but I wanted to make this one comment about HIPAA in particular. It's technology neutral. It doesn't matter what the technology is. So as we progress with artificial intelligence and these other technologies, the rules still apply. We still have to protect the information regardless of the framework that we're working in. So that's where our challenge is as privacy professionals, is we still have these same rules, but wow, they're changing the ballpark out there. Now we're dealing with different things. So artificial intelligence, while it sounds scary maybe on some levels, we are still protecting that information within this same framework. Well, I hope you enjoyed this presentation.
Time for one. Oh, there it goes. Sorry, we have time for one more audience question, if anyone. Oh, sorry.
behind you. Good morning. Thank you guys for everything that you were able to speak on. I have two really quick questions. We're speaking today about data. Whenever you go on a visit to a doctor, sometimes it feels as if you're seeing more people. You may see a medical provider who takes your information, and then you might see a nurse practitioner before you actually see the doctor. So if we're giving so much information that's actually useful, why does it seem, I guess, maybe redundant? That's my first question. My second question is, I understand data systems can be very large and they can get a lot of information, but we're at the whim of our systems. They can collapse. Do we have built-in backups?
Who wants to take one? I could take the redundancy and maybe touch on the number of providers. Yes, absolutely. Part of HIPAA requires us to have a plan to make sure that that information is accessible to the providers and to you. So given that it's electronic, we do a number of things to make sure that if there is a ransomware or a hurricane and we lose power, that there's backup power, there's backup generators, that we have backup servers, so on and so forth. And we have downtime, what we call downtime. So when the internet is down or we can't access it, we have other ways to access your data so that we can continue to care for you. So it's a very good question, and we spend a lot of time as healthcare providers making sure that for whatever reason, if the internet was down, we lost any sort of connectivity, we can still continue to provide care. And then I would say the question around seeing multiple providers, I think, is multifactorial. I think depending upon how every practice works and how those offices works dictates how many different people you might see. I know it's something that we work on continuously, that making sure if you're going to ask a patient to fill out a questionnaire, do you need it? Are you going to act on it? So we really challenge our providers not to ask questions and questionnaires and ask patients to fill out forms unless, one, we really need it and they're going to act on it. But then going back to the portal, again, I would say with the portal, you have the ability to get in and fill out those forms in advance so that by the time you arrive, your healthcare provider hopefully has had an opportunity to review those, so that then when you actually see them, they're not asking you the same questions over and over again because you completed them out in the waiting room, but no one really had a chance to actually review them. And then I'll pass it.
I will say I've been in healthcare literally my entire life. My father was a physician in the medical center, and my first job was filing in his office pre-HIPAA, and when I was like 12. So medicine has changed over the years, so there's a much more team approach to medicine in this era compared to when my father was practicing. And really the focus when in the past was really on the physician. The physician was the god of everything. And now we have a much more team approach where the people who are best able to do whatever it is that we're asking to do are the ones that we ask to do it. So that is, and we also have a much more community approach. So we have a lot of community health workers, we have a lot of social workers, we have a lot of other people who are gathering information so that they can take that information and best serve our patients, so that we can refer out to many of the other programs that might be helpful to our patients. We, in our clinics, we have like a medical legal partnership that if it looks like the patients have a health harming legal need, we can refer them out, but that requires people with more expertise on that than the physician. We have partnerships with a variety of other social programs that might be helpful for the patient, and we test on these. We do research on it to show that there are better outcomes for patients when they have better access to services, much more than healthcare.
I'm sorry, we've already hit we have to move on to the next session in order to make sure we make time. Yes, but there will be plenty of time to talk to our panelists after the session's completed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're now going to be moving into our breakout sessions for the What's New in Technology, Artificial Intelligence, and Data in Healthcare. I'm going to introduce up Dr. Nkechi Ogbo. She will be moderating this session in room 114, which is this room. She has graduated with a Doctor of Pharmacy degree from the University of Minnesota, Duluth, and completed 1-year general practice pharmacy residency at Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center in Houston. She's also completed her master's degree in public health with an emphasis in public health leadership from the University of North Texas Health Science Center. Dr. Ogbo.
Thank you. 1 second, please. It's my pleasure to be here. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing? Good, good. Thank you all to all our moderators, our panelists, and distinguished guests for being here today. We really appreciate your taking our time this day to make this conference. And we know that all our lives will be changed forever, for the better. All right. Also want to thank all our partners, our Houston Methodist team. We thank you so much for partnering with us. Per Scholars, we thank you. Precinct 1, thank you all for sending your people to us as well. CBMHR, Texas Southern University Prostate Cancer Screening and Prevention Center, MHReach, Gulf Coast Consortia, Baylor College of Medicine, we thank you all. And please, if I forgot anybody, I apologize in advance, but thank you all. I'm going to also now bring up to the podium Ms. Myra Almendarez, who is going to be telling us about these breakout rooms. Ms. Myra is currently working as a research coordinator for the Patient Engagement Research Lab, and she represents both J.C. Walter Transplant Center at Houston Methodist Hospital and the Houston Methodist Research Institute with a focus on community engagement and outreach. She is very passionate about conducting research in areas including expanding access to optimal treatments, reducing racial disparities, ensuring informed decision-making, patient-centered care, and improving health outcomes. She has over 13 years' experience in patient-centered care and health education development. In addition to all her accolades, she's currently working on a PhD in public health with an emphasis on health promotion and behavioral sciences. Welcome to the stage, Ms. Almendarez. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. After this session, we will be breaking down to upstairs where you will have a chance to do hands-on on these apps and these devices. So the first one that we're going to talk about is going to be the Lose It Weight Loss app. The Lose It Weight Loss app is a tool designed to help users lose weight by tracking their calorie intake and physical activities. This application aims to make weight loss management easier through user-friendly tracking and personal insights. So the benefits of using this app is you can track calories, goal settings, progress monitoring, community support, and integration with other fitness devices. The next app that you guys will be able to see is the FitOn Workout and Fitness Plan. It's the #1 free fitness app in the market. The FitOn offers a different types of workout videos that you are able to tailor to different of your goals and your strengths and stuff. And the benefit of using this device, it's a diverse workout led by celebrity trainers, personalized plans, live classes, and progress tracking, and social community features. The next device that you will be seeing is the Omron blood pressure monitor machine. It's that can be utilized at home with automatic inflation and deflation. The benefits of using this electronic blood pressure machine is that it's a user-friendly, accurate, and reliable, helps monitor heart rate efficiently. The Withings Smart Temporal Thermometer. You will also have an opportunity to see that, touch it, and be able to play around with it. But this is a digital thermometer that measures body temperature via the forehead with non-contact measures and quick results. The benefit of using this app, it's a smart connected to your phone, Health Insights, tracks information from multiple users, tracks information, and is great for your families. share data with your doctors to inform treatment plans and fever reduction measures. It's a budget-friendly. If this application is expensive, we also offer another application that's going to be cost-efficient than this one that you will see in the next room. Then we also have the Smart Scale that it's a digital scale that provides digital health information beyond weight, including heart rate monitoring, but body composition, such as body fat, muscle mass, and water percentage. The benefit of using this scale, it monitors your heart rate. It's Wi-Fi connected to your phone. You can just step on the scale. You don't have to have your phone with you. It just sends the information automatic to your app. It's multiple users are able to use this at home. And so we also have another equipment that we can show you that is user-friendly and cost-effective than the one you're going to see in the upstairs. And as Christina earlier mentioned, the Apple Watch, how she kind of like was talking about how she uses it, and everyone kind of uses these nowadays. And the benefit of using this, it's comprehensive health monitoring, like she stated, it monitors your blood pressure, your heart rate, when you're sleeping, and stuff like that. And it's a better communication with healthcare providers as well. And we also offer another, if some people don't have the Apple Watch, we will also show you what else you can get that is kind of matchable to the Apple Watch. And now we also have the Bio button that I'm not sure if many of you have heard of, but it's a wearable medical device for patient monitoring that tracks vital signs such as temperature, respiratory rate, and heart rate continuously. The benefit of using this, it's comfortable and discreet, long-term wear, and manages chronic conditions and early illness detection, and more. So you'll have an opportunity to look at this device. It's really small, very lightweight. So you'll be able to talk about that with our people upstairs. But I also want to give thanks to the Houston Methodist Innovation team who made this possible for you guys to come and see and play with the apps and all of these devices for here today. So let's go and explore these devices.
Next, I'm going to be bringing up to the stage Dr. Amy Waterman. She is a national transplant innovator and the Deborah C. and Clifton B. Phillips Centennial Chair for Clinical Research in Transplant Medicine. She is also, as a health services researcher and social psychologist, Dr. Waterman conducts research in areas including how best to expand access to optimal treatments, reduce racial disparities, ensure informed decision-making, ensure patient-centered care, and improve health outcomes. She has designed and tested the efficacy of a suite of innovative educational resources, including mobile decision aid applications, a digital storytelling application, and texting interventions, and living donation. In 2019, she received the American Society of Transplantation Clinician of Distinction Award for National Influence in Transplantation by a non-physician. She holds several degrees, including also being a faculty member at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, pretty much School of Medicine in Nephrology, and Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis in General Medical Sciences. Our distinguished Dr. Amy Waterman, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to give our research room a round of applause because I thought everyone's going to go to the apps. That's what I thought. So I want to say thank you guys so much for being here and being curious about what we're doing in the research space. So to kick this off in terms of our room here, remember they were talking in the earlier meetings about how we're using data, right? How do people use data for something other than your own medical care? Right? So they said, okay, we use it in hospital operations and we use it in research. So there's now going to be a few of us that are talking about how we're using what they call big data, which means data from lots of people to understand and try to improve healthcare. And that's where I'm coming from. The other thing is I want to kind of tell you how much I'm such a beginner in this too. Sometimes there are places as we study AI and machine learning, the area that I focus in is on getting people kidney transplants. But when this all started to happen, I was just as confused as a patient in the community, and I was like, okay, well, what's AI and what's machine learning? And I love this cartoon because it says AI's decisions aren't any better than yours. They're way faster. So there's all of these new models where there's a lot of science happening and mathematical analysis happening that are done by a computer. And AI is the ability of a computer to perform tasks that would normally require human intelligence, and machine learning is a specific type of artificial intelligence that's about algorithms, risk predictive models, which I'm going to talk a lot about. So the other part I wanted to say is I used to think AI and machine learning were like things like the Terminator. Did anybody ever have that thought, like the Terminator, there's like a robot and it's like you're an enemy and I'm going to kill you? Okay. That's kind of my experience with, the idea of artificial intelligence. It's so much simpler than that. So let me just kind of have you see where technology is connecting into healthcare. Okay, yes, we could make robots. All right, I'm not saying there might be a Terminator, not in my lifetime, hopefully, but or I might die. But the thing I do want to say is that a lot of things that computers are going to be used for in the next 10 years that we weren't able to do this before is that they were talking about telemedicine, that the wearables, the applications, all of these are using technology for health, right? It's already been discussed. But the other part, imagine the texting. So say you could text, you could be talking to a medical provider, but you could also be talking to a computer, an AI computer who could say, I have a question about my blood pressure. Is it too high? And the computer could write you back a text and could say, yes, actually, your blood pressure is this. You should go a little bit higher. So remember the individual who was sharing how she wasn't getting the response back from once she got a medical test in her MyChart? You could see that there could be a response that would be written by ChatGPT that says, based on this result, it is safe and you do not have to worry. Like, she didn't get that from her doctor. Could we use technology in some ways to give her more information? So the other part is that I've heard in talking to my colleagues is there's a lot that can be done with looking at scans of various medical things, medical images. So the human eye is biased, but if you could get if you could have a computer scan and say there's maybe a mass here, right? Like the computer's going to be consistent with every single scan. It won't ever get tired and it won't miss something. It'll look exactly the same objective way. So the piece I just want you to say, the other part that's kind of funny is when you need to set up your appointment, you know how sometimes we call and we get somebody, thank you so much, can you stay on the phone while we listen to a really long song? You know that point? What if we can have this automated, they find places, like the computers can do some things faster, right? Now, I'm a psychologist, so the thing that I feel is I say technology and humanity. Okay, I think where it gets worrisome for me and for a lot of people is when we say it's technology only going forward. Does that make sense? But there are things, so what I get is the best of technology could make things faster, could have more communication, could be more accurate without bias. The best of humanity could be that we could free up people to take more time for one-on-one conversations, right? And how do we connect all that? So that's what I'm really passionate about. So let me just tell you a couple things about my area, and we'll show you how this connects. So I don't know how much you guys know about chronic kidney disease, but basically it's very common in the United States. And what we want to do if we're in medicine is we want to help people who have some level of damage to their kidneys. We want to stop that, or we want to slow it so that their kidneys don't fail. And there's a lot of people that have to go on dialysis. If you guys might know somebody in your community that their kidney function has to be replaced by a machine. because their own kidneys don't work, and Black and Hispanic patients are more likely to have kidney failure. So what I want to say is, if this is my mom and she has some kidney damage, we want to slow her kidneys so that they keep working as long as possible. And then if she does have kidney failure, we want to help her get a transplant, which is replacing her own kidneys with a kidney from somebody else, from somebody who's passed away or from a living donor. Because what we know is that you live longer if you can get a transplant compared to staying on a machine, and you have more freedom. You can eat what you want, you can drink what you want, it's less limiting. Okay, so my job as a person who works at the hospital and with transplant patients is to really help empower people. And what we know is that we want to help people be successful at transplant. And we know sometimes people don't make it through the whole process. I also want to show you this because it's really important for our conference today. If you look at the black line, those are the patients from 1995 to 2013. And you can see that the white population is having more and more a higher rate of having a transplant from a living donor, a friend or a family. But the other different communities, Hispanic, Black, and Asians, are actually going down over time. So the best type of treatment is dropping. And I don't want this to be happening. We want to even this out. So what can we learn as a research team? So if you think about this, it looks like a subway map, right? This is like a patient process. So if you look at the blue line in the middle, that's a patient. And they start and they're like, maybe I'd get a transplant, maybe I go forward, maybe I'd go in and start up my appointment and I'd get listed, and then yay, the tube balls, I get a transplant, right? And we know how annoying, I work in patient engagement, and this can be a slow and annoying process where we're getting all these communications and things break down, right? So my job is to say what's happening in these early parts so that the people don't get to living donor transplant or deceased donor transplant. So I was able to get a grant from this group called Aim Ahead. And what's really great about the federal government right now is they're saying, okay, artificial intelligence is happening, machine learning is happening, let's use it to ensure that we have health equity and that we don't make it worse. Okay, so I was given a small grant, and the idea was, could we improve can we reduce bias in applying AI and machine learning to health data, and what can we learn? So what I want to show you is, if you think about that point listing, wonder what happens if somebody thinks about that they might get a transplant, but somewhere before they get signed up to get one, they quit. You can get that. Think of how annoying healthcare is, right? It gets stressful, it's overwhelming, it might cost some money, so we lose them. And what could we do better? So what I want to show you is this data here, because this is an example of what they call big data, meaning this is 4,471 people that I don't know them, but we were able to look at their data with an approved IRB application, so it's appropriate with privacy. And I want to show you this. Overall at Houston Methodist, the people who came forward at the first day and then 12 months later they were evaluated, less than half got there. Lots and lots of people quit. It was too hard. And if you look at Black and Hispanic patients, you see that their rates of getting listed for a transplant so that they could have this better treatment are lower than white patients. So my passion is that everyone deserves equal access to the best treatments, and something's going on here. And how could we do a better job? So what I want to say is that we were able to use AI and machine learning to actually create, using that big data set, characteristics of people that are in low risk of dropping out, who are at middle risk, and who are at high risk. And you can actually, we used the data, we used machine learning, and we built an algorithm, and we said, okay, these are characteristics of people that are more likely to be not making it through. And now, here's where it could be powerful. And this goes back to my point about humanity and technology. Let's use this. So this is what I geek out about, okay? Researchers geek out about. This is really bad if we know they've already dropped out. But what if at the beginning, on day one, when they called to make their first appointment, we go, oh, this person needs much more support. Do you know what I mean? Like otherwise we're gonna lose them. That is our responsibility as a healthcare group, right? So if we knew this ahead of time, Then the idea is we could do better. So what we did is we actually were able to find the at-risk people using this algorithm, and I sat on the phone with them and talked about what we did well and what we didn't do well. And what I want to say is this is how it fits together, in my opinion, the power of AI and the power of humanity, because they started to say, here's what we didn't know. We did not understand what surgery would be like, what evaluation would be like. We didn't know how positive transplant could be. Could you tell us more about that? And then we were kind of scared. We were scared of the pain of the surgery. We felt guilty that I'd owe someone for a treatment. So you can kind of see they started to tell us this. And imagine if we could be talking to lots of patients who are at risk ahead of time. And then we said, okay, what kind of challenges did you have that we could make easier? And they said, well, we didn't know how to find our way around the transplant center. And I didn't know how to ask someone to be a donor. I had to lose weight. It was too hard. And there were some costs, and I didn't know how to cover them. So what is so important when these generous people share what they needed is we can actually improve the process for everybody. And so we got these quotes, and I want to show you because there's a big theme here that I work with a lot in patient engagement. And so they said, look, I don't like to start things out with people because I don't want to lose my position on the list, so I'm quiet, right? So this person got dropped out, right, of transplant evaluation because they just didn't want to shake the tree too much. The other part is people were like, I'm exhausted. I bring my food, but they didn't tell you how long you're going to be there. They took 15 tubes of blood, and you're just sitting, and thank God I brought food. So they gave us these amazing shares of where we could do better. And then they said, this is what you could do. You know, Amy, if you could change the whole transplant system, here's what we want to do. We want to understand that it's actually, that we want to understand how successful they are. Make us excited to get a transplant. Help us with telehealth. So this, I think, is really important. They said, well, can you do meetings on telehealth? Can you do them in the evenings? Can you have a translator? Right? And we're like, that's really important. And then over here, help us with these hard things you tell us we have to do. So free weight loss meds and smoking cessation and all of these things. If you help us, that will be great. And the thing that I heard as I was leading the focus groups, but they basically just said, you got to go help yourself. You can't say, you know, the system when it's bad, you know, or it's slow or it's annoying. It's really how do we empower people with information? And this goes to the technology side of what we're talking about today. People said, could you just give me a text that said you've completed this step and your next step's going to be this one? Like, why go out of communication? We lost track of where we were. Somebody else said that they got the sense of what the financial costs were from a financial advisor. So they wanted to talk to peer mentors. So they said, well, look, I'm starting the process, but maybe I want to talk to somebody who's gotten through it. So what I have the ability to do, if you think about the subway map, is we can build all these things throughout the whole process. And then we could see somebody who is at risk. We could say, okay, we just want to make sure you get your appointment with the financial person and you get your appointment with the peer mentor. So here's, again, why I think this is exciting is that Texas rates second in U.S. deaths due to kidney disease. So we have a task force, and the idea is we bring the data and we bring the recommendations from the community, and we look to see how we can make sure that medications that help to prevent kidneys from failing and access to kidney transplants equal everywhere. So I'm working with patients and families, and they're helping us to design what we're going to build. And then the idea is that we bring this to the community, and the data that we started with helps to provide an answer that's really tailored. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Dr. Waterman, for that presentation. And speaking of data and technology, please, if you can, for those members of our audience here, there is a QR code there if you don't mind scanning to fill up our survey. That only improves us and tells us on what we are doing wrong, what we are doing right, how we can be better. Next up to the podium is Dr. Bhavani, who is a professor of biomedical informatics, senior fellow at the Seeley Center of Aging, member of the Institute of Translational Sciences, and an adjunct faculty at the School of Biomedical Informatics in UT Houston. Dr. Bhavani also obtained a PhD in computational design and human-computer interaction from Carnegie Mellon University and specializes in network visualization and analysis of biomedical data with translation to the design of decision support systems. Wow, I don't know what that is, but okay. In addition, he has received an Outstanding Research Mentorship Award from the University of Michigan and the Rising Stars Award from the University of Texas System. Dr. Bhavani is also a PI and co-PI of several grants from PCORI, the CDC, the Aging Initiative, the Institute for Human Infections and Immunity, and also grants from NSF and NIH. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much to Veronica, who's not here. I wish she was here. But my MPI, we just got an Aim Ahead grant, so a $1 million with Dr. Hunter. So I am going to talk about my reluctant journey into policy translation. If you talk about politics or policy to an AI researcher like myself, we run the other way. I was born in India, and when you talk about politics in India, no one wants to be involved, right? But what I realized was all my papers that were being published, I would end the papers by saying, future research, someone will do something and help the patients. And no one did anything. And so I woke up one morning and I said, I'm a full professor. I'm tenured. I have all of this money. What am I going to leave behind when I retire, right? I need impact, right? And my chair said, don't worry about that. Just focus on your grants. But I said, we really need to start thinking about that. So the talk that I'm going to give today is really my brief journey into going into politics, not as, competing with Biden or anything like that, but really working with policymakers at the Baker Institute, as well as at the Houston Health Department. And we've just started that whole process because AI researchers like me, we don't understand politics. Often we don't care about it. Whereas the politicians don't understand AI. And so who's going to bridge that gap? No one was doing it, and I thought, I need to do that. So everyone cares about fairness, right? This whole equity discussions, et cetera, are very important. But what about healthcare policies? Let's look at this policy, the National Alzheimer's Policy Act. It basically says that Black, Hispanic, and low-income populations face a higher risk for ADRD, which is Alzheimer's disease, right? And then there's all kinds of legal text, right? But this policy divides Americans based on race and income. And I just think that's too simplistic, right? We are much more than our race and income. And so I asked the question, can AI help us understand people at a much finer grain level in a way that was need-based rather than just race and income? Because to me, in fact, I think that's, if someone described me just by my race and income, I would think that was pretty insulting, right? I need, if you want to treat me better, you better understand my life, right? And so that's what this research sort of began with, right? So this is my journey into that policy-making process, and I need your help because I'm just really not an expert in any of that. Okay, so our data is from the All of Us. So the NIH collected a massive amount of data about underrepresented populations, people who have not been involved in research up till now. So it's not a representation of the US population, it's really a representation of the underserved communities. And they make this data available to us with permission to do research. So we asked the question, how do social determinants of health, the non-medical factors, the communities that you live with, is there violence in your neighborhood? Do you have transportation to get to your clinical trials? Do you live in a food desert? Those are all the kinds of questions that it turns out to impact people's health. Almost 50% of your health is determined by these social factors.
And the clinical community has ignored those factors up till now, right? And so now, if you are living, for example, in a neighborhood that has a lot of violence, your risk for depression is very high. And if you have a very high risk for depression, it can lead to other problems. So if your provider is essentially giving you advice about, come to the clinic every 2 weeks, whatever, but if your social environment makes that very difficult for you, how are you going to follow through, correct? So that is the research that Rodney and I are working on. So I did all the good things that scientists do, right? So I won't even go into all of this mumbo jumbo. This is what, when you don't see me, and I'm spending months on data, and you know about that, right? We're, cleaning up the data because we are thinking, who are the reviewers of our work? And they're going to slam us if we don't do step 3, right? And then our paper gets rejected. So I did all this good stuff, right, that I'm trained to do, right? And then I've pioneered new methods in AI so that people like researchers here can examine the data to see if it's biased, right? Because a lot of the AI programs today are learning from what the world is doing. If the world is biased, the damn AI is biased, right? Right? And the way these AI models are built, you can't look into them. They're all ones and zeros, right? So our AI grant together is basically making sure that some of these models can be inspected by humans, right? So that's what we're calling human-centered AI, right? So anyway, I won't go into all of these details. We did all the good stuff. We found these clusters. Our papers just got accepted for publication. And one example is cluster. These are AI models that basically say, how do variables come together, right? Each dot here is an underserved human being, right, with their data. And each triangle there is the variables that they have, right? And so what you can see is in cluster 1, low educational attainment, low literacy, low income, they cluster together. And a lot of the research in the literature today is they're looking at one variable at a time. This model shows you how those variables are co-occurring, right? This is a model that we've built, and Veronica and Rodney have been interpreting it, right? Yeah. So this is the first thing we did. We tried to understand how these social determinants of health co-occur, right? And of course, all the good stuff that AI researchers do, all this mumbo jumbo, all these numbers to get us published, right? So I'm doing all the good stuff that AI people do, but it's not enough because it does not impact real people, right? So then we went in deeper into the outcomes of this clustering. And it turns out that cluster 1, which was socioeconomic barriers, which I'd shown you, sorry about that, which I'd shown you here, right? That had the highest risk for depression, delayed medical care, as well as ER visits, correct? Now, why is that? Well, Veronica and Rodney basically inferred that if you have socioeconomic barriers, you as an American think your situation is you're stuck. You cannot change your life very much. You don't have control on your life, right? And if you don't have control and you're living in a neighborhood and you don't have the right education, where do you go? You don't feel you're part of the American dream, right? So that leads to this notion of being unmodifiable. You can't change your life. You're stuck. There's no upward mobility that you can aspire towards, right? Whereas if you have socio-cultural barriers, which is a language barrier, you're an immigrant, for example, you don't speak English, well, you can get a friend, right? So those kinds of problems don't appear to be that unmodifiable. You have a little bit more control. And what does the data say? Yes, your risk for depression and all of these is much lower than if you're in this category, right? So you guys understand what the research is, that our problems are not one at a time that a lot of researchers are analyzing, but it's a combination of problems. And that's what this model provides you. And researchers can understand them, right? It's not like ones and zeros. I show you a picture and it immediately explains itself, right? But the question was, how does this affect real people, right? That's my problem, right? I live in this ivory tower, I have all these PhDs and whatnot, but who cares, right? And so now is a moment of truth for me, whether we can transform all this fantastic research into fantastic care. So what I did was I went to Rice University, and they have the Baker Institute of Public Policy, and they have a bunch of experts. These people know politicians, I don't. So I said, I don't even know what you are talking about. So they said, okay, you better take this course, right? So for 3 months, I worked with these and learned what politics is about. And it completely opened my mind, right? Because I have trained all my life as a researcher, in the best schools in the world, and I had no clue about politics, right? So then I showed them these results. And it was remarkable what they said. This was a qualitative study. So the expert one said, the current disparity policies in the US are all based on race and income. These are called socio-demographic factors, right? And they said, your model can change that, right? Your model can shift the disparity policies in the US from being just race and income, which is too narrow in my mind also. But he said, what if we have a new model of policies for disparity that are based on need, precisely on need, which is what your model is saying. It's going, oh, really? So my work is relevant? And they said, of course, we need to redefine disparity policies, not just in the US, but in the world. Get rid of this nonsense of color, skin, and income. That is so stupid, right? That's over. We need to get to the real problems, right? Okay, so then the expert said, yes, great, but there are some people who are going to come after you because they think you're ignoring race. But racism is a real problem, so what are you talking about? So they're going to be these, the left-wing people who are going to come after you and say, you're ignoring racism, which is real, right? So they said, this is politics. You have to balance both sides, right? So they said, be careful, Suresh, when you propose your ideas, because you want to win in the end. So you have to understand both sides. I don't do this as a researcher, right? I don't look at both sides. I look at what science says, right? Here I have to think about Republicans, that kind of stuff, right? And they're teaching me to do that, right? That's my education, right? So this expert is basically saying, don't completely remove racism out of the picture, but you have your clusters, go into your clusters and tell me, who are those people? Because you do have the race and income, right? Tell me who those are. Don't change the clusters, but when you design your interventions, be culturally conscious. And you get both. You get the science showing you how, 3 minutes more. Tell her I need 3 minutes more, please. Okay, and then expert 3 said, Suresh, your method should be the policy because Medicaid is now stipulating that when we go into the hospital, they ask us about our social and cultural variables, right? And who's going to analyze those data? You are, right? So they said, in the future, imagine a new policy where anyone in the county level can download the data of social determinants of health, right? They use the clustering not on your abstract clusters that you got from one data set, but every county can do this analysis. So now what are you capturing? You're capturing the heterogeneity of the US population, because every county can be different and every county can change over time, right? Because you can analyze it, right? So that was the consensus here. So what I assumed, here's my last 2 minutes, ma'am. What I assumed was I do all this fancy stuff, right? And I care about that they're fair, the algorithms are fair, the data is great, and all of that, and I'm done. And someone else will do this work, right? In terms of translating it into real practical things. What I learned was that the disparity policies in the US, they suck. It's time to change them. Remove race and income out of the picture, but don't forget it completely, right? So we are moving from this picture, which is old-fashioned and out of date, to something that's more sophisticated using AI. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhavani. And we're going to bring it up. We're running behind time, so you can ask those questions hopefully afterwards. There will be time afterwards. Thank you. So I'm taking it home to us a bit. Dr. Idowu is going to be speaking to us here on artificial intelligence research projects occurring here in TSU. He is a research assistant professor here in the College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences at TSU here. His expertise is in molecular biology, biocomputational science, and artificial intelligence research. And in addition, also through TSU's LEAP program, Dr. Idowu was appointed as well as a faculty member here. He also teaches a lot of students here various things about AI. Recently, with our university, with funding here, Dr. Idowu established the BioRack Center here, and this is pretty much a high-performance computing center which focuses on training AI and ML and the applications in advanced computing and biomolecular research. Dr. Idowu.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My own presentation is a little bit different from Dr. Suarez. I'm not into policy. I'm more into basic biomedical research. And so I'll be talking to us about a center in TSU we recently established, and it's Biomedical Research and Advanced Computing Center. So this is a center that is basically centered on biomedical research in connection with computational and artificial intelligence. So I myself, I have some other staff members, and we have faculty advisors in this center. And this center, as I've said, employs high-performing computing and optimizing advanced scalable algorithm to solve research questions. So in the center, we make use of techniques like AI to develop drug, to analyze lab-based data. We know every day we generate data, and most of the time, our data speak more than what we understand. Right. So if we are not spending much time, and like that image Dr. Amy showed the other time, the decision of data is not more than what we do, right? But it's faster. So when we use AI will get information much about our data than what we could not ordinarily or naturally extract from. So this is a cluster in the center. So we got an internal grant from the university to establish this center at least more than $500,000. So we use that to establish this center, and this center is basically for all TSU staff, students, and faculty that are interested in learning AI, coding, computational studies, or if you are a researcher, you want us to apply AI to some of your research, you can contact us for this. So these are some of the things we do in the center. We do high-throughput virtual drug screening, right? We do molecular dynamics simulation. We do mutation analysis, next-generational sequence analysis, deep learning model, image classification, bioactivity, predictive model design. We also do parallel computing and automated data analysis. So I'm going to explain this in detail. So for the high-throughput drug screening, what this is telling us is we know the process of drug discovery can take up to 10 years. But with the involvement on AI, this has been shortened to between 3 to 5 years. And we can see a typical example in the issue of vaccine development during COVID. Ordinarily, it takes years for vaccine to be developed, but thanks the moment we have a sequence of the first COVID genome, everybody went to the lab, right, using the AI to predict, okay, which is going to work, which is not going to work. So we use high-throughput drug screening, whereby you can work about millions of compounds, right? And instead of going to the lab, testing them one by one, which one is going to work, you can start your work by using computer algorithm to screen this database. So what was supposed to take you time, resources, using AI, we can do that in a short time. And we use this AI method to screen drugs. For instance, if you're looking at SARS-CoV-2, you can use AI to see what particular drug is going to interact more with your target in SARS-CoV-2. And instead of going to labs, spend all time and resources, you can screen down millions of compounds to maybe like the best 10 that will definitely going to work in the lab. So another thing is we do molecular dynamics simulation. So in this system, we try to mimic what happens in a physical environment, whereby we have our drugs, we have possible target, and we had virtual water. Yes, virtual water, because normally in the lab, you have your drug, your enzymes, everything in a test tube, right? You had aqueous, you eat, you equilibrate. So we do that using computer algorithm to simulate that and see, okay, what is the interactions between our potential drugs and our target from our disease? And we can simulate that and see, okay, what is the mechanism of interactions between the drugs and the protein to see if this is going to work actually in the real sense. And we calculate we have a lot of parameters to determine this. One, is it binding strongly? Is it exerting the conformational changes we expect to cause either inhibition or induction based on what is expected from that target? So we also do, like I said, NGS. We do analysis of looking at genes genetic sequence. And I remember a study, NIH-funded study looking at genetic makeup of rich and the poor, right? It was somehow funny, but by the time I look at the findings of that result, there are a lot of genetic differences between the rich and the poor, basically due to what they are exposed to, what they eat, and the rest. So we can use this cluster that I just showed to us to do a kind of genetic analysis of different conditions, either pathological or non-pathological conditions. So we do this in TSU as well. Also, we do a kind number of deep learning studies. An example of this is we have a lot of drugs, right, being used to treat different patients, right? We can look at the response to different stages of disease, and we look at that. We look at the responses to model, to build the AI model. So, for instance, if at a particular stage of disease, this is how someone is responding, we can look at that from a data of different set of patients, right? And we use that to model. So when we have a new set of patients, we can say, okay, based on what we have seen in the past, our model is going to predict for us this is likely outcome. And in the same manner too, when we have different drugs that you tested against a particular disease at different dose response, right, we can build a predictive model using deep learning system, right? So when you have a new drugs, don't go to the lab, just feed your new drugs into that data, into that model. It will predict the likely IC50 or inhibitory potential of that drug for you using this method. So this we regularly we have workshop for students, for staff and faculty in TSU. And if probably an outsider you are interested, yes, you can contact us. So we had quite a number of workshop. And recently we got a grant from the Department of Energy in collaboration with PNN National Lab in Washington. And what this is purely computational work, whereby we have a collaboration about 10 labs all over the countries. So what we do is we are trying to make a kind of biopreparation for next pandemic. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to look at the kind of molecular interactions between a bacteria and a phage and a cyanobacteria. So we are trying to use that method, working with different labs all over the country, and we are trying to build a microsystem with this lab, with this project, so that we can mimic, okay, what should be our response to the subsequent pandemic in the nation. So if you're interested in any of these platforms, you can contact us, talk to me, Dr. Scott, my colleague in this regard. Thank you. So I want to appreciate all my colleagues, the university, everyone that has been helpful in securing this grant and making sure this is a success. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ide. Well, next one is, like he mentioned, his colleague, Dr. Scott, who is unfortunately not here with us, but I'm going to go ahead and play his video quite shortly. Dr. Whitman is his name, is a postdoctoral research scientist in the Center of the Biomedical and Minority Health Research in the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences here at TSU. He received his bachelor's and PhD degrees in biology from the University of Houston. His research incorporates AI in drug discovery for cancer and ID. He also teaches computational biology and data science to faculty, staff, and students. And I will go right ahead and play his video.
Hello, and thank you for attending my talk today about how artificial intelligence machine learning is being used for drug discovery at TSU. My name is Scott Whitman, and I am a research scientist in the Center for Biomedical and Minority Health Research in the lab of Dr. Olaleyi at TSU. In the center, our drug discovery efforts focus on cancer and infectious disease. My current projects specifically focus on breast cancer and COVID-19. AI/ML is used to enhance our efforts and employ novel approaches in drug discovery. For the breast cancer project, a form of machine learning known as deep learning is implemented to accelerate the discovery of novel therapeutics targeting the estrogen receptor alpha. This process involves training a deep neural network to predict compounds that will bind to the receptor, which in turn drastically reduces their number from over 1 billion to several million. This allows for a feasible number of compounds to be virtually screened for binding to the receptor, eventually leading to a smaller number of molecules that can be experimentally tested. The top scoring compounds from the deep learning model will be tested for their ability to inhibit breast cancer cells, their mechanisms of action, and eventually tested in preclinical mouse models. Future plans involve training the deep learning model on a larger 7 billion compound library and training it to predict binding to a mutated form of the estrogen receptor alpha, commonly found in breast cancer, as well as binding to the progesterone receptor. The COVID-19 project uses a form of machine learning known as gradient-boosted trees to determine biological pathways and targets for therapeutic intervention of COVID-19. This approach involves training a gradient-boosted tree algorithm on the gene expression profiles of hundreds of hospitalized COVID-19 patients and healthy controls. From the thousands of genes analyzed, the algorithm can determine patterns that are unique to severe COVID-19. These results can then be used for biological pathway analyses, and drug candidates can be tested to target the individual genes or proteins of the pathways to either inhibit or potentiate their functions. The machine learning algorithm has determined a set of genes that are targetable with drugs that have reported activity on them. These drugs will be tested for their ability to prevent the cytopathic or cell-killing effects of a less virulent coronavirus that is related to SARS-CoV-2, human coronavirus OC43, as well as their ability to prevent the initial entry of the coronavirus into the host cells. I'd like to thank the Olaleyi Lab and the Center for Biomedical and Minority Health Research, and thank you for attending my talk.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right. So next, please ignore this 5-minute transition. There's no transition. To save some time, first of all, can I appreciate you all for sticking with us? We appreciate you. Thank you. Clap for yourselves. Awesome. All right. So before I bring up to the stage Mr. Virgil Elkins, I just wanted to give us a few reminders. Please do complete our survey, either using the QR code, and it's okay if you don't want to use the QR code. We do have some papers that our volunteers will be passing along to you. Please do fill that for us. We also have a free tool, CE hour credit that we can also give to our CHWs, please. We are still streaming live, so thank you all, and do share our links. And then, of course, just say hi to us on Facebook, Instagram, and everywhere else. Mr. Elkins is our program manager for our Community Engagement Core, and I have the pleasure and honor. He has been working tirelessly also helping with all this. So please do give him a round of applause as he brings up the other moderators and panelists for the last session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ogbo. Good morning, everyone. As stated before, I'm Virgil Elkins, Project Manager for TSU CEC. First, I'd like to begin and introduce our moderator, Dr. Rodney Hunter. Dr. Hunter is a clinical associate professor and a clinical pharmacy specialist in breast model oncology. He has served as the program director of the TSU Breast Cancer Screening and Prevention Center. He actively works with the Center for Biomedical and Minority Health Research at TSU on research projects and community outreach initiatives. He is also a clinical assistant professor, the Division of Internal Medicine, Department of Oncology at the University of Texas Health McGovern Medical School in Houston, Texas. He obtained his Doctor of Pharmacy degree from Texas Southern University College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences in 2007. He went on to complete an oncology fellowship at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas. Welcome, Dr. Rodney Hunter. Next, as you've seen before, we've had her up here as a guest, Dr. Waterman. She'll be joining the panel discussion as well, so we welcome Dr. Waterman again. Next, we have Mr. Donnell Cooper. Donnell Cooper has spent over 20 years as a community leader and is dedicated to providing educational and economic opportunities to families and students. His desire to serve people is what has fueled his desire to become the next Houston City Council member at large, position 3. He believes his primary focus on public safety, fiscal responsibility, economic opportunities, and better quality of life are the keys to making great city of Houston greater for the people. Donnell's passion for public service led him to become district director of the Boy Scouts of America, where he directed more than 28,000 youth. He is currently the campus director with HCC, overseeing the educational careers of Houstonians at 5 campuses. As campus director, Donnell directly impacts the lives of thousands of students by providing instructional leadership and implementing curriculum and campus programs. Born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, his formative years were spent in Houston and graduated from Jack Yates High School. Cooper received his BS in criminal justice with a minor in sociology from Southern University. He completed his MS in public administration at Texas Southern University and later his Doctor of Education in Professional Leadership concentration from the University of Houston. Welcome, Dr. Donnell Cooper. And last but certainly not least, we welcome Sydney Blankenship. Sydney Blankenship is a technical instructor at Perscholas Houston. Perscholas envisions a technology workforce as diverse as the customers it serves. Perscholas provides skills training and access to individuals often excluded from tech careers. Sydney started teaching in August of 2014 and is often described by his students as unique, passionate, and empowering. He is known for his dynamic coaching style that exhorts confidence in his students to master the curriculum. He currently holds the CompTIAA Plus, I hope I said that correctly, Network Plus, Security Plus, and Cisco CCNA certification. He holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Advanced Technology and Computer Networking from Alcorn State University. Welcome, Mr. Sydney Blankenship.
Passing it off to me. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. I'd like to welcome the panelists to the stage today as we may have a nice conversation about artificial intelligence, technology, and how exactly that's impacting our community and all of the folks out there in the audience. So Dr. Waterman, I actually start with you. In reference to technology and artificial intelligence, when patients are preparing for their visits to the hospital, like what are some things they can do as we have this changing paradigm?
So this is, I think, the key thing. We're all facing this, right? So it used to be We would call, we'd get a human being, or we'd get a lot of delay, and then we would get a doctor or a nurse, and that would be the medical experience. The key thing that you want to do now, you and also people that you love, is you want to figure out what are the tools, the AI and the technology tools that could help with communication. That's my biggest thing. What is quickly happening is that there are tools for making appointments. There are tools where my husband and I had colonoscopies on a week in between. So one time I was the person supporting the person, and one time he was supporting me. And you got texts. You became part of a text channel that said the person is being moved to surgery. The person, you can now go to have your lunch because they have to have their procedure. So the piece I want you to start to think about and share with the people that aren't here is where can this technology help you stay in the loop, be more powerful as a family, and also be able to communicate more directly with your healthcare team faster. Okay, all of those things can stop the breakdowns in how we work with our healthcare team. And the second thing that was brought up before that I wanted to underline was that my mom is scared to death about technology. Does anybody have anybody like that in their life? Yes, totally scared. And so the piece that I think that I would recommend is if you have someone older that you're supporting, think about this recommendation of MyChart and being linked to their MyChart. Okay? Like, honestly, that is the best thing for long-distance caregivers like me, and for people that all of this data is overwhelming, talking to providers is overwhelming. That can make the most difference when you're an advocate for people. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Waterman. Dr. Waterman was answering a couple of my questions there. No, it's great. It's great. I'll move to you, Dr. Cooper. So I want to know how can technology help the community members in their support system in making decisions on their actual health care?
Again, I think that's a great question. The organization that I represent is called the African American Male Wellness Agency, and our mission across 20 cities across this country is to remove the barriers of Black men not going to the doctor. And of course, technology has become a major asset for it because Black men are not engaged with technology. And so what we've been able to concentrate on is two things. One, access, making sure that Black men have access to technology, and then two, education. So when a Black man hears about going to the doctor, we fray away from the doctor because we don't want to go to the doctor. So we use a conversation called Real Man Real Talk. So if I put a flyer in a man's hand that says, hey, come to my event called Real Man Real Talk, they're saying, what is that? Well, we're really having a conversation around mental health. And when they get there, we have Black physicians there to educate them on the access to technologies and let them know that, hey, we know that you do have a hypertension issue that you may not be aware of, that you may not be taking medicine for. But here's the technology that's available. I'm another Black man that just happens to be wearing a white coat as a doctor, but I want to help you. And so so that immediately removes the barriers, that removes the pride, and that allows the conversations to start happening, which is not happening in this space. Years ago, in our initiative, we are known across the country for doing a 5K health and wellness initiative across the country, and we bring the clinic to the community. So any screening, medical screening, known for men, known for women, we bring it to the walk for free, and then we allow the men and women to actually walk. But a man once come in, he gave a testimonial. He says, I have more in my iPhone device on my car documented than my body, which means that I know when I change my oil, when I changed my tire rotation, when I changed my windshield, but nothing about my body. But through the technology opportunity that you've provided at this walk, I can now walk away knowing my numbers. And so creating access to education has been a major tool that we need to incorporate about empowering those local communities.
Excellent, Dr. Cooper. Thank you for that. Mr. Blankenship, I actually want to move to you. And I want to talk about the careers because I think we have this stigma and everybody's worried about the robots. I heard a reference to Terminator, which I think everybody out here, we don't have a lot of young, I do see some of my students, so they may not be as familiar with Terminator, but he used to control everything at the movie theaters. So I say all that to say, as we talk about artificial intelligence and technology, how is it going to affect the careers that are coming up in healthcare? How's that paradigm going to change? Like, what's your perspective on that?
Thank you, sir. So as technology continues to grow and move at this unprecedented pace, what we need to do is upskill, right? We need to make sure that we're going forward with getting new skill sets, especially different ones, right? So in technology. So whenever we so there's a survey we did for ProScholas, right? So there was a survey that was based on 2,000 workers, professional workers in the industry, and in those workers, 57% of those workers actually were learning upskills and actually getting new skill sets, right? So what they did was these skill sets are new skill sets, right? They're trying to get their foot in the door and continue to grow into their better jobs. But I would say that when it comes to upskilling, there were a few things that our industry needs to take care of or look at. Okay, the healthcare needs to look at data science. It needs to look at it's data science, it's software engineering, it's apps. It would be the fourth one would be data science and AI, right? Definitely, we'll be talking about AI. So when it comes to AI, we need to make sure that we're moving towards those particular skill sets at all times, man. And so yeah, that's pretty much what I would say. Now, another thing we're working on at ProScholas is to make sure that we're looking at a holistic approach for training individuals. So we have wraparound services to make sure that we're not only addressing their technical needs, we're addressing their professional development. We're making sure that they have support services as far as financial and everything else that goes around their training, so they can feel successful in their careers.
Excellent. So you actually mentioned, I heard you mention the word app. So I'm just curious in the audience, how many of you use MyChart or something to look at your labs or your appointments, like online or on your telephone with your physician? Okay, so we got a high number. So that kind of moves me into Dr. Waterman and talking about how can patients kind of leverage technology to better the level of healthcare they're receiving?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So a few more thoughts about MyChart, just to add to what we've all been talking about. So the first part is I moved from California to Texas, and my data is in MyChart, and it says, where do you live now? And it literally has all the tests, right? From when I lived in California and then when I lived in Texas. You can merge them all. So the way that I think about that is this is a place in which your historical life of being a patient you can have this data. And to give an example, you can have key areas that your doctor wants you to watch. So let's say I talked about kidney function, right? When you have a urine test and blood test, you get your kidney function checked. You can have a plot. They're in MyChart. I didn't even know that. The AMY plot of every year when I go to my doctor, what's happening, right? So all the areas that your doctor says, just make sure you monitor this over time. Do you know what I mean? That's really key. And the other part that with MyChart that I love is that the ability, my mom is, my scared mom, I swear we have so many stories, but my scared mom is afraid to be a bother to her doctor until it's really bad. Anybody know that feeling? Okay, so she's calling me, she's like, Amy, I am having a UTI and I can't leave my house and I'm having all this pain. I'm like, well, send a message to your doctor. The key to me is how are you communicating now, and is it fast enough, especially when you're waiting till it's really severe, right? Or your loved one is doing that. Because the thing that I like, the other thing I want to do a caution here is some doctors are very responsive. I have this amazing doctor that gets back in a few minutes, like in an hour. Then I have another person that says, sorry, I don't look at it. So you got to know that. You got to know the other person said the same thing. But these tools are to save time for you and for them. And the key is that you break your half of the wall, right? So that you can get better care.
Thank you for that, Dr. Waterman. I think that moving patients to to the aspect of understanding that the technology can be leveraged to better their experience and increase the response and to decrease the time that they receive healthcare is an important thing for them to understand out there. And I move to you, Dr. Cooper. I know that you have some political ties. And can you describe any, I guess, political or local government or state government initiatives that may be out there related to artificial intelligence and healthcare? Or do they exist, or are they in the woodwork?
Well, that's a two-part question. One, it does currently exist. However, we typically don't have those. We don't see the presence of them in inner city communities. So we talked about earlier when we opened up this morning session about the $8.6 billion program of the grant that has been engaged to this program here at TSU. A lot of that has been derived around data. And so I think sometimes in the inner city communities, we don't understand the importance of we as a resident, we are the community, we are part of that data that allows that $8.6 billion to be relevant. But how that data is allocated in regards to technology is because of how we live, how we eat, how we go to the doctor. So the MyChart, all that information, that empowers back into a data. So now we know that the zip codes here, 77004, here in Third Ward, Texas, there's an opportunity for us to go and build something medically wise because of the data that has been put forth. And so the government, you always hear from the city of Houston or the state of Texas talking about all these free resources that are available, but then the next thing you say was, well, how do I go about in getting it? Because we don't know the access points or the touch points. We call the telephone number line, Harris County Health, and it's ring, 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 ring. You never get an answer. You call the state of Texas, the same thing. And so now what we need to take the next step is making sure that we're inviting those companies to these inner city communities to educate our communities on how to access that. Not just give me a telephone number, but find the resources that we're looking for and let's invite them out. This is how supermarkets, this is how hospitals, this is how community development is formed when they come out and see a need based on the data. And so the technology resources that are there from the city of Houston, Harris County Health has a lot of synergized platforms that are derived around AI. The city of Houston has several different departments that are definitely embracing that technology pace. So we're talking about it today as though it's a new conversation, but we're really behind because we're not taking the initial steps in regards to getting engaged and inviting people here to TSU. This room today should be jam-packed with those community partners saying, hey, here are the AI platforms that are available right here in your zip code for free. And we want to be able to make sure that you have the access to be able to engage those opportunities.
Yes, thank you for that, Dr. Cooper. Thank you for that. And I think that it's right in line with some data that was discussed by one of our colleagues about looking at those clusters and social determinants of health. And while race is going to be included in the analysis, the data that's obtained, what does that patient actually look like, is actually equally as important in that sense. Because if you're making decisions without data and you're just blindly making decisions, that's when you a lot of times make the wrong decision. So us having data behind the decisions that we make to allocate resources is in essence what we want the government to do and what will make the whole policy and the process of getting the right resources to the right places fair and accurate. Yes.
And just to I so agree with both of these amazing people. And the thing I want to say is about getting data earlier. So the key thing with AI and machine learning is that we can use big data to say, Amy's walking in the door for a medical procedure and she's going to need more help, right? So up to this point, my mother's waiting at home. She's really sick. By the time she calls, she shows up and it's late and she doesn't do very well, right? What if we can have data that's like finding my mom and sending a ping out that says, hey, Karen, my amazing mom, how you doing? You've had a frequent history of this. Have you had any of those? Do you see what I mean? She feels taken care of. We find her before it's too late. She does better. So it's moving up as early as we can. And that's exciting because we can prevent health problems from getting that severe. We can slow a lot of things. And that's, to me, very exciting.
Thank you for that, Dr. Waterman. And I want to go back to you, Mr. Blankenship. And I think that you mentioned this, you touched on it briefly as you were ending your answer to your previous question. But for those that are college students and our high school students that are going into their careers, what kind of advice can you give them to, as far as training is concerned, and what direction to take? Because I have a 22-year-old. He's trying to find his way and he's trying to find what he wants to do. What are some advice you would give to that age group as they're developing their careers around technology and AI?
Yeah. So first, you got to be open, curious, and open to learning throughout your lifetime. So this is a full journey in tech, right? Like you're a lifetime learner. So so at Per Scholas, we actually are we like that because we actually support that. We foster continuous learning. So let's say you went to Per Scholas, and by the way, our stuff is free. Okay, it's a free training program, no cost to you. All you got to do is have your be open to learning, and we give it to you for free. So to get back to the question, is that you have to know your career path, right? Now, kind of like know what the foundations are, know the fundamentals. So take a basic course to see if you like that course, right? See if you like networking, see if you like, data, know what machine learning is, right? So they got a bunch of free courses like Splunk or all these different AWS courses, right? They'll give you a free course, and you're like, well, I don't like that. I don't like dealing with numbers. And then, like I say, make it affordable. If it's somewhere, cause like I went to Alcorn State, and I work with guys at huge universities, and we learned the same information. So a router's a router, a switch is a switch. So my point is that you don't have to go spend a bunch of money to go learn information. Okay, so then talk to people in the field. So always get you a mentor. Mentors are important. So yeah, talk to some and one thing I learned from just talking to people is that, man, they open to help. They love helping people, right? Like LinkedIn, networking is the best skill set you can have when you're trying to learn, and basically get a career path for yourself. But as far as the skill sets, anything in the cloud, man, like cloud certifications, you can't go wrong. We're not going, like that stuff is going anywhere, right? Like I said, AI, right? Getting to the cutting edge. So Microsoft Copilot, they have a bunch of free courses online. If you take Windows, right? So Windows Azure. So they have a bunch of free training online on Windows Azure. So you can go in there and they'll tell you, when you take the course, it'll explain everything what it's about. But like I say, there's a bunch of free resources online, and you can figure out your path. Okay, so and to make it short, my last point is, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I first got in. I started out in robotics, and I was like, oh man, I like networking, and you can change courses. So don't be afraid to start over, okay? So if you start on one path as a young person, don't be afraid to start over into another path.
Thank you for that, Mr. Blankenship. I'd heard my brother-in-law's in cybersecurity, so he was telling me that Microsoft is going to have an overhaul on artificial intelligence as far as the engines are concerned, using graphics cards, because they think a lot more sophisticated than what you're aware of, like that technology on the graphics card. So when you're going in your office, as they get these more upgrades, I think the AI is going to really start leaning a lot more heavily on things that's going to happen when you're trying to do things in Microsoft Office moving forward because of this development of AI. And I'm doing my job as a moderator, and I'm monitoring the time, Dr. Ajarwale, and I know that we're behind, but we're also ahead as far as my panelists are concerned. So if we have time for maybe 1 to 2 questions in the audience, and then we're going to hand it over if y'all have any for our panel. And if you don't, then you're going to make some people happy. Yes, sir.
All right, so I just wanted to kind of speak to how you said that you were able to get the service out to the community, right? For one, how did you fund that? Was it through grants or proposals or anything like that? And for two, how did you get people to participate? The reason I say this is because in things such as the data already shows that pulmonary rehabilitation is very underused within underserved populations as well as others. So how are you able to, how could I or whoever able to attack these issues?
So again, I couldn't say it again. I thank you so much for the question. Collaborative partnerships. Collaborative partnerships is the key. I'll take a quick example. I'm pretty sure a lot of us have heard about the R&B singer Al B. Sure. He's been around for years. We know that he suffered several years ago. He had a major health crisis right over in the university area. Literally walked out of a restaurant, fell out in the street, and was bleeding. 2 Uber drivers passed him up because he was bleeding. The 3rd Uber driver literally stopped and took him to Methodist Hospital. When he got to Methodist Hospital, he was there. He was in a coma, a serious time. Methodist didn't have an idea what was wrong with him, and they said we need to transition him to hospice. Reverend Al Sharpton and Attorney Ben Crump heard about his story, and they called Methodist and said, "Do not send him to hospice. Call APEC." APIC is the largest liver transplant disease company here in Houston, Texas, right there in Bel Air on the corner of 610 and Furnace. And when APEC got involved, they identified that Albie Shore had a very, very rare type of liver disease, the same type of liver disease that Reverend Al Sharpton had, that had to be transmitted by and donored by another African American. So an African American female was his donor. But when I went to go meet with APEC, the ironic thing to the story was that they have so many free resources. A guy named Major Harrison, a retired Army general, started that company, just recently passed away. And when I say, well, how does the inner city community know about these resources that you say you have available for Black and brown communities? He said, well, we don't know how to touch the community. We don't know how to communicate. We don't have a banner. So I said, well, where's your marketing person? And a lady raised his hand. So I said, well, what part of Houston do you live in, ma'am? She said, well, I live in the north part of Austin. And so I said, well, how is a company in Bel Air providing a marketing plan for a company here in Houston? And so what the African American Male Wellness Agency, what we specialize in is closing the gap. So we go out and build those collaborative partnerships, and we bring those resources to the community. So now everywhere we go, APEC comes with us. And they bring all those free liver transplant testing devices they have, all that AI technology they have. We allow people to touch and feel that right in the inner city community. But again, until we bridge that gap, none of those companies are never going to have a banner in our communities. So collaborative partnerships, I'm hoping that answers your question. Thank you.
I think we got, okay, look at her. She's looking at me funny. What we got? How we doing? Oh, all right now. Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Real Man Real Talk is our national discussion. So again, as we talked about earlier, Real Man Real Talk is a very creative way with minority community instead of saying, let's go to the doctor. So we have a mental discussion every month with African-American men. We go into churches, we go into community centers, wherever you can think of, we go into those spaces and we have a conversation about mental health. And it's not a direct conversation, it's more of an exercise. So we take 60 minutes out of their schedules and we do 4 to 5 mental exercises with a partner. And it allows another African-American male to realize that just because I'm not on medication, I do suffer from a mental illness. It could be the way that I wake my child up in the morning. I realize through that exercise, you know what? My dad was a militant director, and how he woke me up in the morning, that's how I wake my kids up. But it's in a very aggressive manner. That's a mental issue. And so, again, these Real Man, Real Talk discussions allow Black men, I'm going to be very specific, Black men to understand the opportunity that it's okay to remove the mask, to take the cape off that we wear every day as African-American men, because that's how we were raised. We were raised not to be, show weakness, cry. But in these sessions, we allow men to say, it's okay, most importantly, to talk. We know that mental health is a major discussion in this country, not only with men of color, but all across the country. And it's getting younger and younger because we're not having the discussions, allowing people to find a safe space to communicate their issues. And so in order to find a safe space, we have to find trust. And so we had to do those in small, intentional opportunities. So it's the Real Man, Real Talk. It's just really a caveat way of a title to draw men in, because every man feels, I'm real and I'm a real man. Let me go see what this is about. But when they get there, the flyer said nothing about mental health. So they say, wow, I'm here for a mental health discussion. But when they leave away, they talk about everything. And it takes one man to stand up and say, hey, I've served 23 years in prison, and now I suffer from being in large crowds, because I've served 23 years in a small environment. So when I hear that I'm going to a family reunion, a birthday party, something at work, I immediately start to have anxiety because I know that I'm getting ready to get into a large population. But I've spent the majority of my life behind incarceration. And so now that mental aspect, he's okay, because now what he's speaking about something he suffered with for 23 years. So now that he knows it's okay to talk about it, now the help and the resources become available. So again, we'd love to invite you July the 11th, 6 o'clock. We'll be downtown at Phil and Derek's for our next Real Man, Real Talk conversation. We just released a guy named Eric Roberson, an R&B singer, just released a new song called Mask Off. And we're going to be tying that into our Mask Off campaign, letting men know that it's okay to remove the mask.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper. I think now they want to stop. so with my panel, I would like to definitely thank y'all for y'all's time, y'all's candor, y'all's information y'all share with our audience, Dr. Waterman, Dr. Cooper, and Mr. Blankenship. Thank y'all.
Awesome. Thank you again to the panelists. Has it not been an amazing session today, guys? This has been awesome. For those that are in the room and those that are online, thank you again for engaging with us. We are now getting close to the end of today's session. It will be my pleasure to invite up Dr. J, who is standing in for Dr. Monica Olaleye for the closing remarks for today's session. Dr. Olaleye is currently on a university travel, not able to join us, but Dr. J, welcome. Thank you so much, Dr. J. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I will be very short. I come here to bring greetings from Dr. Olaleye. Dr. O and I are the co-PI for this wonderful $8.6 million federal grant for us to serve the community. We have several other core besides the community engagement, including research infrastructure core, which we conduct a lot of cutting-edge researchers, including treating disease like cancer, infectious disease, everything like that. So we're not only doing community service, we're also doing research. But the importance of AI and computational research is so important right now in current stage. So we want all the population, including the young and old, to understand the importance of that. And we will do our best to bring the latest information to the community, and we can all close the gap. And thank you for attending our conference today. Thank all the audience, and especially the wonderful speakers. I heard some of the panel discussion. They're just wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much to join us today. I will let Dr. Ajwali to close the meeting.
Thank you very much, Dr. J. Please let me to appreciate Dr. J. Dr. J was on the panel when I was being interviewed as a student into TSU. So thank you, Dr. J. Amazing support for, over a decade now. And it's been great, to grow under mentorship as well as that of Dr. Olaleye, Dr. Liang, and so many other faculty in here at TSU. So I know I'm standing in between us and lunch, and I will be quick as we just go over a couple of announcements. So in Community Engagement Corps and so many of the other grant-funded initiatives that we lead, we have a couple of really exciting conferences and outreach events that are coming up. On Saturday, we will be gathering again about 5 minutes away from here. We are going to have free mammogram, no-cost mammogram for about 20 women already confirmed. But between 11 and 12, we will be having a focused conversation on breast cancer. We have titled that Shining Light on Breast Cancer, a Community Forum. So please feel free to join us either in person or online. And all these flyers are in the packet that you received when you came in. So feel free to refer to those programs as well. In addition to that, next month, we all know it's back to school season, right? We want to make sure that everyone around us is healthy and doing well. So we are going to have our immunization, health education, and outreach. We have secured several mobile units also providing no-cost services, mammograms, cervical cancer screening, immunization for school-aged children as well as adults. This is going to happen at Powerhouse Church in Katy. We would also be having an educational presentation on the same day. So please feel free to join us if you live around the Katy area, if you know anybody in that side of town, to please join us to receive and be part of this no-cost immunization as well as healthcare services. Well, the African American Wellness Agency, they eat it right on point, right? Real men, real talk. In the same manner, many of us might know that September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. In the same vein, we want to continue to have this conversation to make sure that we engage with the men, to encourage them to have this open discussion about prostate cancer. Unfortunately, prostate cancer still remains the leading cause of mortality when it comes to cancer among African American men. So at Texas Southern University, we'll be having our third prostate cancer conference, and we have titled it Face to Face, Shoulder to Shoulder. Women are used to talking to each other face to face. Men, they talk shoulder to shoulder. They're in the bar room, they're watching football games, they talk over shoulders. But for us as women, we are used to having a face-to-face conversation. So this call out is really to engage men and women to have an open dialogue about prostate cancer. As part of this event, we would also be partnering with a lot of partners and healthcare service providers, including no-cost PSA screening for prostate cancer on that day. This is going to be about 5 minutes away from TSU. So please mark your calendar. We hope we can see you there September 14th, 2024. In the same vein, by God's grace, October, we know October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? We are going to paint TSU pink officially in October. Many of us might be aware of our We Roar Against Breast Cancer program. We will be having this third annual conference, October 18th, 2024. It's going to be a Friday from 11 to 3 p.m. We usually have it outdoor in the Swaya Plaza area. Same way, we're going to provide no-cost mammogram to, eligible community members, as well as several healthcare services will be provided on the mobile units here on the campus of TSU. So please save the date. Again, these flyers are all in your folders. Help us to spread the word out to the community. Well, I cannot end this session without saying a big thank you to all our sponsors. Thank you to all our partners. Thank you, Precinct 1, Commissioner Rodney Ellis's office. Thank you for transporting Miss Yvette, right? Did I get it right? Yes. Thank you for transporting the seniors here to be able to engage with us on this initiative. Again, I want to say a big thank you. I said it earlier when I was opening. I can have the vision, the biggest I can, but if I don't have the support of the faces on this slide, we cannot implement this and all our other initiatives successfully. So please help me to appreciate all our staff members again. Thank you so much, each of you. Dr. Poon, I appreciate you. Dr. Ogbo, everyone on the slide. Thank you to all the departments and colleges in the university. This is truly collaborative, right? Even walking up to the office of the president. Imagine the president just joined us less than 3 weeks ago, and having him do that recording, for opening remark. This is, really, really remarkable. And I stand humbled and honored every single time that I have an opportunity to be able to do this. Constellation X, how can we end this without saying thank you to you guys? Media Group, thank you. We walk through all the logistics. Thank you guys, the cameras, the pictures, everything in between. And to all our volunteers and interns, please help me to appreciate these people. Some of them are in high school, okay? Thank you, all the volunteers out there. If you guys can hear me, thank you for supporting us. And lastly, again, please don't forget, we are grant funded, so we are very keen to listening to your feedback. Complete the survey either online, or if you want to do the paper format, that is also fine, because your feedback will tell us, do you want us to do this again next year? Right? Do you want us to continue doing a similar topic or do a different topic? So please complete the survey. We are very, very open to hearing the feedback from you so that we continue to evolve as we collectively address health equity in our community.
Hello again. I am sure that today's program has been inspiring and that you have received additional information around the topic of technology, artificial intelligence, and data in healthcare. I hope we've been able to answer your questions. I hope that you have received more information and become more knowledgeable around this incredibly important topic. And I want to implore you to please complete our survey. Continue to stay connected with us on all our social media platforms. You will find us at CEC TX Southern U. I want to say thank you to our funders, to our sponsors, exhibitors, vendors, to the faculty, staff, and leadership of Texas Southern University. I want to appreciate and say a big thank you to each and every one of you, our community members. Thank you for supporting our efforts. Thank you for joining us during today's conference. And I would like the impact of today's conference to live beyond today's program. So please, the information that you have heard today, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it among your circle of influence. And remember that today's video will be found on our YouTube channel, so that way you continue to stay empowered and increase your knowledge about technology, artificial intelligence, and data in healthcare. Thank you for engaging with us, and we look forward to more impact in the community alongside each of you. Thank you again, and bye.